You're welcome.
All right, we're good? All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to tonight's school committee meeting. Jen, can I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a consent agenda, the minutes from December 13th, 2018, and vote to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda is read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. We have two sections on the agenda for input from interested citizens, one now and one at the beginning, at the end of the meeting. I do believe there may be some input from the public on the presentation on our alternative structured learning day program, also known by its colloquialisms, blizzard bags or snow bags. We are going to have a presentation on that, so I would ask that if someone is here to speak on that topic, if you have the time to spare, if you could wait for the presentation, and hopefully that will answer questions or address concerns that you may have. And then I will specifically ask for public input on that topic when we get to it. If you simply can't stay that long, you've got some reason that you need to get home and you'd rather make your comments at the beginning of the meeting, you can certainly do so now. If you have anything else you want to bring up with the school committee, not related to that particular topic, but about something else, you can do that now, or you can do it at the end of the meeting. So at this point, I will ask for any input from interested citizens. All right, seeing none, we'll go into recognition. Crunchy?
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge and thank one of our community members for generously donating $500 to our lunch program. We are respecting the request to remain anonymous. It's greatly appreciated. Our second recognition tonight, our middle school once again has been awarded a Spotlight School status. That's actually quite a commendation. There are 28 middle schools within all of the New England states that are actual Spotlight schools. And the middle school has maintained this status for a number of years. I've enclosed a letter in your package, and I'd just like to read a few of these bullets, maybe all of them. The team that came out spent a day at the middle school and looked at all aspects of the school and interviewed kids and parents as well. And they made the following commendations. The Littleton Middle School should be commended for a well-organized PD program, supportive of best practice for young adolescent learners, pleasant, well-maintained learning environment, effective teaching teams and common planning time, a highly effective wellness program for all students, a new schedule in support of effective time management and learning opportunities, an energetic and effective administrative team, as well as support and encouragement from central office, effective and innovative use of technology to support learning, reflecting a technology integration plan, a new exciting makerspace embraced by both staff and students, focused attention to curriculum review and assessment of student performance, successful co-teaching model used in ELA and mathematics, active parent and community support, an advisory program with a focus on social and emotional learning competencies. Very proud of the accomplishments of the middle school, the staff and the students and the community at large and the administration. These things just don't happen. It takes a lot of hard work, and I'm very, very pleased that we're able to maintain that status as we move forward. So congratulations, Principal Temple, and please extend our congratulations to your staff and students as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our high school cafeteria is embarking upon an exciting partnership. They're actually going to have a special day, January 17th, and they're going to be serving baked haddock, Ritz cracker crumbs, or roasted Brussels sprouts, making me hungry already, with balsamic vinegar, a coleslaw, and a dinner roll, milk and fruit for only $3.95. They've been able to establish a nice partnership with a company that really promotes using fresh seafood within all of the New England states. So this is an exciting move for our cafeteria. I'd like to acknowledge Mary Lou Kelly for all of her hard work in making this happen. To the school committee and to the staff, if you have an opportunity to free yourself up during noon hour, January 17th, starting at 11 o'clock to 12:15, please email Mary Lou and she'll set aside a meal for you. So really pleased the cafeteria is venturing out and trying new things with our students. 2017-2018 district reports. We put one on the table. We've been doing this for a number of years now, and it's a great way to look at the accomplishments of our district from year to year. And enjoy your reading, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call. District reports will be available at all of our schools, and it will also be online on our website. And we're into the student representative report.
Thank you. So at Shaker Lane this week, tomorrow morning at the wake-up call on WBZ Channel 5, the students shared their compassion project collecting over 470 hats and mittens for families at the House of Hope. At the Littleton Middle School, the Middle School Community Service Club is holding a coat drive for loaves and fishes through January 30th. Donations are in the lobby. The Geography B is gymnasium tomorrow at 12:30 as well. At the high school, this weekend is the Anne of Green Gables musical production. Today is the first show, actually. And Friday we have one, and then on Saturday there's two. The Class of 2020 College Planning Night is January 15th at 7. On January 21st, we all have a day off for Martin Luther King Day. From January 22nd to the 25th, we have a special schedule for mid-year exams. Thank you.
All right, we're into presentations. We have a big one tonight, the Alternative Structured Learning Day program.
Nice to be there.
That was short respite.
I used to be the director of curriculum.
And you thought you got out of doing these things.
No, it's actually very nice to have the opportunity.
This is the new and improved Dr. Jean. Post-retirement.
This is very much a collaborative effort. I'm very, very appreciative to the guidance and support of the school committee and the administrative council. Mrs. Steele and I are working with a number of different people and instructional planning teams, and we have 3 other presenters this time as well, talking about Russell Street instructional planning will be Mrs. Kat Dale, who is the grade 4 team leader, but she is also completing an administrative internship this year with Principal Bazillo. Also presenting is Rebecca Deacon, the assistant principal at Shaker Lane School, who served as the instructional lead for the Shaker Lane instructional planning, and Shayla Garlisi, who is a 2nd grade teacher. We're starting first forward with our rationale. We state the belief that we do believe the highest form of learning takes place in a classroom with a qualified teacher, specialist support staff. We also acknowledge that the learning opportunities that we are aimed to present during the course of the year we feel outstrip those that can be offered at the end, tacked on at the end of the school year. Major topics, you'll see some of the themes continued from the October presentation. We're giving a little bit of detail again just in case folks, this is the first time they're seeing this presentation, a little bit of the statewide context. And then taking a look at the nexus between the statewide context and Littleton's goals and guiding principles. Actually, principle is one of my favorite homonyms. It's a word that sounds the same but is spelled differently. And it's important to remember that all of the principles were very, very much, and assistant principals, the 3 assistant principals were involved in every single aspect of this instructional planning and guiding things together. Along the way, there was, at different junctures, it was an iterative process where school level teams would be planning, and then the administrative council would come together and take a look at how things are going. And I rarely use sports analogies, but one thing, and it's basketball, did catch my attention. When they were talking about the Celtics against the Pacers before the game, that they blew them out, they said, take a look at ball movement. And the specific statistics about assists escaped me, but the larger point didn't. And that was that the Celtics have become exemplars for the league on moving the ball and making those baskets by handing it off to someone else for an assist. You know, I grew up in the era of Wilt Chamberlain doing 100 points by himself. But, you know, the Celtics are showing that you can really get something done with assists and collaboration. And sometimes that collaboration could be messy. Sometimes it takes a long time. But it really, really would be impossible. It would be like maybe 7-point font to list all the people throughout this district who have been involved in the planning thus far. Anytime that the administrators are talking about something, it also goes into different support staff. So we are just really, really thrilled that this is an example of Littleton's practice. It's not. It's something we're doing in addition to what we've done before, but it reflects what we always do. And that's why I use the principles here. Some of the pilot timelines, the calendar contingencies, and due dates for student assignments that have changed since last time, so I wanted to show you that. Going to slide 4. This really is the heart of the instructional planning process since we presented to you in October, and what that has, the instructional planning that has occurred at the three grade levels, elementary, the primary school, the intermediate elementary, middle, and high school. And it's important, you know, we chose that phrase deliberately with the administrative council, the dynamics of student choice, because central in this, throughout this project, student choice is one of the key tenets. Number 5, this is the state context. It gives you an idea of what alternative structured learning days programs are. It is the phrase that the State Department Department of Elementary and Secondary Education adopted this phrase rather than blizzard bags. And there was some confusion when word got out, not with the words of the letter that Dr. Clinchie and I wrote, but some parent questions about, you know, what are these days for? Are they in lieu of maybe less than 180 days? And it's important to note that these alternative structured learning day programs are solutions for inclement weather. It's instead of, you have to have your 900 or 990 hours and a total of 180 days in the school calendar. This is instead of the 5 days that are tacked on at the end of the year due to inclement weather. And we've had, in different venues, school councils and meetings, the principals have addressed that really would be a misunderstanding. This is guidance from the state of Massachusetts, and we emphasized this last time. And what's important with the underlining is the definition of structured learning time. Okay. And I included that in this presentation and the October presentation. We can go to slide 8. What's important key aspects of DESC guidance is that the assignments are substantial. It is not worksheet or traditional homework assignment. This is not in lieu of homework. This is in lieu of what happens within a school day. The accessibility to students and the accommodations to students who may not have internet, or families may have, there may be 4, 5, 6 siblings, could be just 2 siblings having to share a device. So the idea of accessibility and equity is key. 8 or 9. Central tenets, in terms of implementing programs before they're implemented must be approved by the local school committee. After that school committee approval, the district, Dr. Clinchy, will submit a copy of the locally approved plan to DESE, and at the end of the pilot, the district will conduct a survey. Okay, now in slide 10, the font enhancement, the blue, bold, and underline, that shows the differences between this presentation and what we presented in October. We spent some time meeting with the school councils in each school and parent communities in each school. And for this pilot program, at the outset, what we're going to say is that we are identifying alternative learning, structured learning opportunities for students to complete in lieu of 3 to 5 school days. And that number of days is contingent upon how many snow days have occurred as of April 12, 2019. That's the last day before the spring break. And then I wanted to emphasize that we want to build in flexibility within this program, that we are a district divided into, I mentioned this before, but I want to emphasize it again, we're divided into elementary, middle, and high schools. And so we want to create a model that is flexible. There's some things that are district-wide and some things that are flexible. There's flexibility within the schools and within grade levels themselves. So it's not a one-size-fit-all endeavor. Then moving to slide 11, these are our guiding practices. These things are there 180 days in the school year. They were there 180 days last year, with the exception of the focus on the new art and science and teaching by Marzano Research. That is the focus for professional development, learning goals, and many professional goals within this for this year. Since the implementation or the adoption of the new educator evaluation framework within Massachusetts, Littleton's implementation has had the focus on student engagement is one of the focus elements. There's 33 elements that teachers could be evaluated on, and having met with the LEA and administrative group, the focus element on student engagement has been part of the last 5 years of our educator evaluation framework. Our lessons are standards-based, and they emphasize specifically reading and writing across the curriculum. And you will see we shared in this packet, and we shared with school committee the exemplars of the instructional planning template, where teachers were asked to list and identify specifically the learning standards that guide their lessons. Central tenets, again, about the emphasis on the quality of learning experience and that student work will never be due the day students return after a snow day. The first iteration of this project, this iteration of this pilot, is not tied to the actual date that a snow day occurs. Okay. This is the estimated time to complete student assignments. When I'm talking about time to complete student assignments, it's not literally the amount of time that a student sits down in one sitting and works on and engages in their learning activity. What this is the amount of time that the students will be involved in some type of blended learning or task in lieu of a snow day. Okay. Now, this is, we have some calendar contingencies. What would happen if? And this slide is revised from the October presentation. The first bullet is the same as what we presented in October. It is our hope, it is our proposal that the program goes into effect on January 28th. If there is a snow day prior to the program going into effect, it will be made up at the end of the year. Students will complete learning activities for day 1, 2, and 3, regardless of the number of snow days that occur up until April 12th. And I urge, principals have talked about this with staff. Staff, the faculty are the ones that are making the curricular accommodations, and the staff understand, and it is our endeavor to have students and parents understand that this is not extra. There is curricular accommodations that will occur. This reflects the curriculum. If there is a snow day, students work on those tasks. If there were no snow day, those tasks could be accomplished within school or in lieu of a homework assignment. That's why we emphasize, and all the principals and the superintendent will emphasize the notion of curricular accommodations so that all the stakeholders recognize that this is not make work or extra work for the first 3 days. So as of April 12th, 2019, when everyone goes their way for spring break, if there's been 3 days or less snow days, there are no further assignments to be done. If there's 4 or 5 or more snow days, then the learning activities for day 4 and day 5 would be completed. And then the last bullet was the same as what we had in our first presentation, that school cancellations beyond 5 snow days during the pilot period will be made up at the end of the school year. I, have been here when Littleton had 7, 8 snow days. That could happen. This was the initial timeline that we presented in October. This is the revision, emphasizing staggered due dates, and that if there have not been, if there's been less than 3 snow days before April 12th, only assignments 1, 2, and 3 will be done by April 12th, and at the end of the pilot period for the completion of learning activities remains the same. This was done in consultation with the secondary level, especially the high school, and knowing that the month of May is busy with the high stakes state testing. It is the end of educator evaluation. It's gearing up for graduation, and we are not following the example of other districts and having assignments due June 1st. I mentioned the importance of assists and collaboration and working together. These are the people who are involved in the instructional planning teams. at the elementary level. And Mrs. Deacon and Mrs. Dale will be talking more about the work of those instructional planning teams. At the secondary level, the curriculum coordinators played a key role in the instructional planning, and they were joined by a core group of 3 teachers representing district-wide ELL, middle school special education, and a high school history social science. And now I will ask Chief Elaine.
Hi, everybody. So Shaker Lane, we feel like this was from November 18th to January 2019 was pretty much the second stage of the planning process. I know at the last school committee where this was talked about, they really talked about the initial planning stages. So with that being said, we really involved everybody at Shaker Lane in really contributing to these activities for the Snow Day pilot. That included all regular education teachers, kindergarten, transitional, grade 1, grade 2. We did that through grade level meetings. We did that in staff meetings. Our special education team also took time so that they could make sure that all our children on IEPs, their accommodations were going to be met with those activities for all the days, as well as our ELL staff to make sure that those kids whose English was not a first language also had those accommodations in those bags for all the days that we're going to be going home. So we feel like our staff at Shaker Lane really had quite a bit of time to look through everything, plan carefully, and also had a voice really in everything that was going to be put forth to our students. The staff K-2 also, if you actually look inside your packet, you will find the assessment rubric inside of there. I just don't know. Oh, it's right on top, right? Awesome. It's got a great snowman visual on there for our young friends, so you know, they can see as well. So K-2 staff put that together as a general assessment rubric that could be used across the board, K-2 for assessing their assignments that come back to us. I think planning communication with students prior to January 28th. The teachers will be discussing the pilot with all the students. They'll be reviewing expectations. They'll be reviewing how does it work, what does this look like. They'll be showing them the actual packet, going through the work with them, explaining everything that they need to do. Also explaining maybe the due dates that they have to come back. Not that we expect our young friends to remember that, but I think they'll go over it in quite some detail with them so that they're pretty sure when they go home of what they need to do. The teachers will also be reviewing the grading rubric with their students so that they can go home and use that as well while they're working. And in front of you, you have examples of all of our packets. So we at Shaker Lane, there are 3 themed activity days per grade level. So kindergarten has 3 theme days, first grade has 3 theme days, second grade, and they're all based on standards. So we chose for you our colors packet that you can take a look at if you would like. First grade, we chose our animals packet for you to go through and look at, and second grade, we chose the landforms packet for you to go through and look at. So, and I know it was mentioned before that, I think it might talk about it later, but what's included in those packets and all the different curriculum areas that will be addressed with each packet. And then, if we need day 4 and 5, possibly, we planned 2 additional days for our students, and actually K through 2. So all the kids will have the same themed packets. So one of them is based on an ethnicity. So you all see a book that you have, I believe, called Happy in Our Skin. I think you have the hardcover, right? Do you? Oh, it's hardcover right there. Awesome. Yep. So that's one of their bags that will be planned. And then the other bag, we called it our heart bag. So it's all involved with social emotional learning. And again, those bags will be K-2.
I'm Shayna Garlisi, a grade 2 teacher at Shaker Lane. So to look a little more specifically at what is in our bags, every day's set of activities based on a theme will include 4 activities. So every bag has a reading and comprehension activity included in it, where teachers will be able to go on to Students RAS Kids accounts and assign them a book that's related to the theme. Most of them have 3 optional reading levels that are differentiated on the same topic so that students are reading what is appropriate for them, and all of them have the opportunity for students to listen to it rather than read it themselves, and then still answer the comprehension questions for our youngest students who are still beginning readers. There are also printout copies available for students that don't have the ability to access it online, as well as some modifications to the books that have been made, including extra vocabulary sources for our ELL students. Every bag also contains a math activity, something that is related to the theme, but aligned with Common Core standards for what students are working with. And we specifically looked at where can our students use a little extra practice in different math standards and strands. So I believe the first grade bags are focused on place value. In second grade, we looked at data collection in the bag that you have, the sample for landform. So they're rolling and recording and charting the number or the landform that comes up on a dice and then comparing those values. And then each bag for the third activity has either a science, social studies, or writing assignment to it, because we do math and literacy every day, but science and social studies and writing rotate throughout the week. So we'll have all 3 of them by the time they've done all 3 bags, but 1 in each. And again, those are related to the theme. And then the fourth activity in each bag would be either art, music, or gym, with the exception of the second grade bag you have in front of you has a social studies and a writing assignment, but not an art, music, or gym, so there's a little extra in there. And then what we did was we added extensions to all of the activities. So there's the base activity that all students would be expected to do, whether it's the way it comes in the bag or modified for them. And then an extension activity to go above and beyond for, we all have those students who like to do a little extra or put a little more into their work. And then the same is consistent in our day 4 and 5 learning bags, the one on Happy in Our Skin and Heart, our social emotional program. So they'll have, again, a reading, a math, a science, social studies, or writing, and an art, music, or gym activity included in them. Then our next slide is the rubric that we came up with. So we tried to keep it clear and simple for students. So we looked at completion, like how much of the work is completed. Did you not complete it at all? Or did you complete everything, including the extensions and anywhere in between? And then we also looked at accuracy within it. So is the work you completed correct? Is it partially correct? Is it mostly correct, incorrect? And then they can be graded from there. So they'll have the rubric ahead of time so they know what is expected of them, and then teachers can then fill out the rubric based on the work that is returned on those due dates. Thank you.
I'm Kat Dale. I'm here to talk about Russell Street School's Blizzard bags. To begin, we have the 3 grade levels and the different books that were selected for each of them. Again, as I talked about in our October presentation, teachers came together and were able to choose from 3 books. They felt that the books chosen here, Girl Wonder, A Baseball Story, 9 Innings, Grandfather's Journey, and Henry's Freedom Box were the best books for their students. That would allow them to appropriately tackle any of the activities that were provided, and they all tie into each grade level's theme. All the books, the first grade level's theme was focusing on kindness and courage, grade 4's theme was immigration, and grade 5's theme was civil rights and racial injustice. All these books, I've had a chance to look through them, all are engaging, illustration-wise, and the story is really interesting for all students to read, and it's filled with great vocabulary. We have our planning and preparation. We've started this back in October, where we had 6 classroom teachers from each grade level come together, and including that was 5 education teachers. Together we kind of talked about what do we want all 3 grade levels to kind of look like. So there's some sort of vertical consistency amongst all 3 levels. After that, grade level teams had an opportunity to separate and meet and plan their own Blizzard bags. All these activities provided are authentic, engaging, standards-based activities that provide students with a lot of choice whenever possible. I want to say how proud I am of all the vertical and horizontal consistency that as students transition throughout the Russell Street School, they're seeing similar things, but just being built upon as appropriate with the standards. The activities that we are focusing on, as alluded earlier, these are 90-minute days that we have. Our topics are 2 days of ELA, we have a math day, and 2 choice days. So what's going to happen is that the ELA day 1 is required for everyone, and that's in every grade level. In that activity, all students will be working on reading their book, which is also available whether Mr. Bizidlo's done the reading or the reading is available online for students, so all students can access the literature. And then everyone's allowed to, we'll be working on our answer routine, which is something that we've been practicing as the school. After that, they have 2 days left in that 3 days that we're looking at. They can pick a math day, or they can go and pick 2 choice days. If we have a 4th Blizzard day, they need to complete one of the days that haven't been completed so far, and then same thing for the 5th day. The materials that we're going to be sending home are available in paper form, which you guys have all received. In their packets, they have all their days along with all the specialist choice boards that are available to them. So our specialists are art, STEM, PE, and music, who have made their own individual choice boards, so any student who's engaged in any of those things can find something that interests them to complete. In addition to that, we'll have a welcome letter, which will kind of go over what the expectations for Russell Street School is, and then our rubric we're going to be sending home just as good teaching practice and learning practice so students know what the expectation is of all their assignments. Our special ed spent a lot of time really thinking about making sure that all of our assignments are accessible to all learners, and I just wanted to showcase one of the ways that our special ed teachers modified their curriculum. So this is for a 5th grade math Blizzard bag, taking what the 5th grade teachers did and then kind of changing it a little bit so her students were able to access the curriculum. Yes, please.
Hi, 5th graders. I'm here to show you the Place Value Park project for your Blizzard bag. The Place Value Park starts with a direction sheet, and it's a lot of words, but it's really easy to do when you have your Place Value Park note-taking sheet. So to get started, we want your Place Value note-taking sheet, a pencil, white poster paper, coloring utensils like markers, colored pencils, crayons, anything like that. So as you can see, we start with number 1 is blades of grass, and the note-taking sheet goes right along with the direction sheet. So the first thing says, to find the number of blades of grass in your park, write the current time as one whole number. So example, if it was 11:53, then your number is 1,153. The value of the digit in the tens place is the number of grass blades in your park. My first example is that it is 2:26 in the afternoon. I'm circling the digit in the tens place. So I have 226, circle that 2 in the tens place. The value of my digit is 20. So I have 20 blades of grass in my park. Next up, I'm going to draw. So I use the answer from my first question to draw the number of blades of grass.
You can stop it right there.
I'm going to draw 20
So this is just a good
little blades.
This is just a good model of our teachers really thinking outside the box to make sure students really access all the curriculum. And this is a great visual. The students are hearing someone that they're familiar with, and they also have the visual learning component as well. Our assessments, we came up with, this is one of the more latest processes that we've looked at. We want to make sure that we're giving our students meaningful feedback and making sure that this is something that they're learning from. So all the rubrics, we met together as a team and kind of set a similar rubric for each grade level and made sure that they're all standards-based and that there's clear learning objectives for each of the activities that are provided. Along with that, our specialists have also made our own, their own rubrics as well. So to begin, each grade level is going to get a color-coded folder. Yellow is 4th grade, orange is 3rd grade, and blue is 5th grade. All the activities will be on one side, and the notes and letters will be on the other side. To make sure, one problem that we were thinking about is keeping all our books organized. So Mrs. Hazen, our librarian, is going to be barcoding all the folders along with all of the books, and she'll check out the book to the student and then put it in the student's folder. That way we know that this book is going home with Courtney. So it's something that we're kind of planning to make sure everything is organized. In addition to this, all the materials are going to be available online through PDFs and with clear links available into any links that are online. Another thing that we thought about is how do we organize all these materials once they come into us, and we came up with like a little checklist just to make sure that everything, that they completed the 3 days or the 4 days or 5 days that we have, and then making sure that the appropriate work gets off to the specialist so they can assess and grade. Ways that we've communicated within our school in which we plan to communicate with parents and children are to preview, all teachers have previewed and discussed their materials with their grade levels. Today we had another meeting where we were able to kind of share each grade level's work so everyone kind of knows and sees the vertical consistency that we have in Russell Street School. We have a slideshow that will kind of be showing students. We don't need to show that, sorry. But that's kind of just, we wanted the purpose of that is to make it engaging for students to see what's really happening and kind of bringing it down to their level. And then Mr. Basilio and myself will be doing a parent question session on Thursday, January 24th at 5:30 if there's any additional questions left. Next sheet. Here's an example of our choice board. So we have half-day and full-day activities. The goal is that they'll make one full day worth of learning depending on what they choose. So you can pick a social studies half day and a cooking half day, and there's your 1 day of learning.
Sorry?
Okay. Here's an example of our rubric. If you can just click on the image itself. Oops.
Click where?
On the image. The actual table, the actual rubric. Yeah. And here's what the 4th grade rubric would look like. So if the student, everyone's doing English Language Arts Day 1, Activity 1 is the reading. Activity 2, there are the clear objectives. And then in the next column is whether they exceeded, met, or beginning or progressing that standard. And then we have a column for any notes. So this is just to make sure that students are getting valuable feedback for their work. Next slide. Thank you.
Good evening. I'll be discussing the secondary level planning, or continuing on with secondary level planning as we've discussed it before. The planning process at the secondary level consists of a team of the Secondary Curriculum Council teachers, as well as 3 classroom teachers, and that group of people work together to create all the documents for our 6 through 12 students. 2 major considerations that we had. Firstly, we wanted to really consider the dynamics of student choice, not only within the course and within the specific assignment, but also within the days. And so the 6 through 12 is a little bit set up differently in the sense that students have a good amount of choice as to which assignment they pick, but then also when they choose to complete the actual assignment. As we've mentioned before, AP courses are exempt due to the course pacing, which is recommended and set forth by the College Board. Specific to our learning activities, one piece of feedback that we heard from our teachers was that they really wanted the assignments to be course specific rather than department based. And so we took that into consideration and went ahead with it and decided that it was worth doing so that teachers could feel that their assignment was very valuable to the curriculum that they were doing in their classrooms. With regards to the assignments 6 through 12, the students are able to pick between short and long assignments. At the middle school, a short assignment is 1 hour and 15 minutes, excuse me, and a long assignment at the middle school is 2.5 hours. whereas a short assignment at the high school is an hour and a half, and a long assignment at the high school is 3 hours. In order to come up with the assignment proposal or lesson template, teachers were able to come together, and they were provided substitute coverage so that they could come together to really create something and collaborate with other department members, if they so chose, to come up with assignments that would be really engaging for our students. We then, after those templates were created, they were sent up, and we had curricular and administrative reviews of those lesson plan proposals. After having gone through every single one, which is there are a lot of them for our students for every single class, I'm really happy to say that our teachers were very creative, but came up with really wonderful lessons and engaging lessons for our students. After they received feedback on their proposals from Dr. Ajamian and from me, they then were able to turn around and create the student assignment sheet, which has specific directions for the learning activities for the students to complete. With regards to assessment, as we have mentioned previously, we wanted a common rubric for our 6 through 12 students, for a couple of reasons. One, so that it would be uniform, and two, so that students would know when they looked at it what their expectation was for every single assignment that they were receiving. Within the rubric and the assessment, we have decided that teachers have some flexibility in the manner in which they are going to evaluate. Considering we're starting this program halfway through the year, our teachers' grade books are set, and it's not possible to change them partway through the year. So what we have decided is to give teachers the ability and the professional judgment to assess the assignment in the way that they choose fit best for their class. So, for example, a couple of ways that we're proposing that our teachers grade is to have the learning activity or snow day cancellation activity count as one homework assignment if they do a short one. If the student chooses a long assignment, then maybe the teacher counts it as 2 homework assignments or 1 quiz grade. And so this is allowing the teachers to have some autonomy in the way in which they are implementing the assessment into their class, which we felt was appropriate at this point in time. With regards to the requirements, this is in portion of hours. We've discussed this previously in the sense that our original proposal was that we were going to have students complete a little bit longer, but since we've adjusted due to feedback and listening to people and a variety of stakeholders, we've adjusted the requirements so that in grades 6 through 8, our students need to complete an hour and 15 minutes of ELA, math, and science. That means that they need to complete at least 1 short assignment, and that's a minimum requirement. Our grade 9 students need to complete an hour and a half of ELA, math, and science, again, a minimum requirement. And grades 10 through 12 need to complete an hour and a half of ELA and math as a minimum requirement. They're, of course, welcome to continue on to do more if they're really engaged and interested in what they're doing. And a final point for the secondary level planning is that our advisory and flex block periods are going to be crucial venues for our students and teachers in order to help them review, plan, and track the choice boards that our students going to be using in order to pick and complete their assignments. So to show you a couple of the templates that our teachers have worked on and that our students will see. This first template that you're seeing here is the Learning Activity Assignment Proposal Form and Lesson Template. This is the one for the middle school, and this is what teachers were given in order to complete and consider the assignment for which they were making for their class. I want to draw your attention to a couple of things here. One, this form really encouraged teachers to not only be able to describe their assignment, but then also to consider thoroughly the assignment in a couple of different ways. We wanted to make sure that the teacher had to answer the question, how is student choice incorporated into the assignment? Because that was really critical for us. And the other question that was really important that teachers had to ask themselves with regards to the assignment was, how can this assignment be differentiated or scaffolded in order to meet the needs of all of our students? The next slide has the high school version of this format. Again, the same questions are there. Those are really critical questions for our teachers to be asking, and I think our teachers ask these questions every day in their practice, which is wonderful, and this just kind of put it down on paper so we could solidify that we're ensuring that we're thinking about these things. The difference here is the time frame, the minimum requirements of an hour and a half and 3 hours. This next template that you see is the student learning activity and assignment. The difference between this and the last two forms that you saw is that this is the form that we are going to push out to students. So this is what students will see. It has specifically an area for directions, and so that the teachers were able to put directly onto this sheet the directions that students could then just open this up. And we've asked teachers to link any extra resources. So, for example, some math teachers have added some math MCAS packets. Other teachers, a couple of history assignments, and science assignments have included some articles. And so the teachers are able to just hyperlink those articles to this assignment sheet. And this is the assignment sheet for the high school. Again, same. The difference is in the anticipated time to complete the lesson. Here we have our student choice boards. This is the student choice board for grades 6 through 8. You're going to see similarities between all 6 through 8 as well as the 9 through 12 choice boards. There are some directions at the top of each choice board. The middle boxes of the choice board have the available subject areas in which the students can pick their assignments from. It also lists, again, the minimum requirements that have to be completed within the first 3 days, which is to ensure that our students are touching upon ELA, math, and science in the first 3 days, so that way if we only have the 3 days, they are completing those assignments. When we look at the bottom graphic, you can see that the days, each day is split into 2 blocks. For the high school, they're hour-and-a-half blocks. For the middle school, they're hour and 15-minute blocks. These are the short assignments. However, students can just combine those 2 blocks into one and to finish their long assignment if they so choose a long assignment. You can see that the due dates are set right on there. That was another recommendation that we had from parents and students alike, that they wanted set due dates that were closer to basically the winter when the possible snow days would be. So that way we're not leaving all of our students to end up doing, not that all of them would, but on May 14th doing a couple of assignments. You can also notice that we set off the days 4 and 5, bolded them off on the side, and so that those are very clearly marked that if they're needed, as other presenters have explained that. 12 choice board, and here is the rubric, and this is a common rubric that we created for 6 through 12A, so we had uniformity amongst all of them, all of the assignments, but also for students, for the sake of when they're working on their snow day assignment, they know exactly what the expectation is, and so there's no confusion between which classes, how they're being assessed. Similar to other rubrics that you've seen this evening, we have exceeds expectations, meets, approaches, and does not meet expectations. So teachers really have a lot of ability to make sure that they're explaining their assignments and then using this appropriately for their assignment and their class. This is our proposed timeline. A couple things to note on this proposed timeline is that we would like to have students have time to hear and understand what this is all about, then also hear and understand what their possible student assignments would be, where they could pick from, and give them time to actually then create their choice board so that they're creating assignments in an order in which they are happy with. We then can see on this proposed timeline that we have ongoing checks during the flex block as well as the advisory. We found that it's going to be really important, or we feel it's going to be really important to have these frequent check-ins with our students, not only to make sure that they're staying on progress, but also to answer any questions that they might have specific to a particular assignment. Also, you can see that we have implemented the 3 new due dates of March 1st, March 22nd, and April 12th, with the final deadline still being May 15th, but that would be only if we needed days 4 and 5 for the snow days. And communicating with all stakeholders. I think everyone tonight has really expressed the fact that communication with all of our stakeholders, students, parents, guardians alike, is really, really important. I think 6 through 12, it's even maybe a little bit more so important to really make sure that we're communicating directly with our students. And so we feel that flex block and advisory, the flex block is the middle school model, the advisory is the high school model. in which we can communicate with our students because they're in smaller groups and answer any questions that they may have. Additionally, we have the website that is, we have prepared. I want to give a quick shout out to Julie Lord, who is an amazing technology instructional specialist in our district, and she has really pioneered with this website, and I just need to give her a shout out. She's done a lot of work with all of us on this. And so you can see that this is the home page, so there would be a direct link on the LPS website that can direct people here to answer any questions, but also for students to be able to find their assignments. And so exactly where the mouse is right now, student learning activities. So our students can click on, if they're a high school student or middle school student, even Russell Street and Shaker Lane, the student can come here, or the families might choose to come here in order to look up particular assignments. And so this is really important for students to access their assignments, we felt, for 6 through 12, because we do a lot of digital. But at the same time, we would have the paper copies available for anyone that might need it, easily accessible at school as well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
These next two slides end with what our next steps are and planning for next year. Our presentation today is putting forth to the school committee the final proposal for the learning program design. What we aim to complete and documents to be finalized before the proposed start date of the pilot. We have two important documents that we would present to school committee on January 24th. And one is a FAQ, frequently asked questions resource for parents. We have begun to gather certain topics to put into the FAQ resource. We have exemplars from 2 districts that we feel were particularly would reflect what our principles, PLES, are. And finally, a roles and responsibilities document. Our district is made up of faculty, support staff, paraprofessionals, clerical, administrators. 5 days of the school year is 5 out of 108. But during those 5 days of the school year, all of the people employed within Littleton Public Schools that the taxpayers within Littleton Public Schools support and the school committee guides, they have tasks. And so our goals is to outline what those tasks are, and the superintendent has made clear that in our endeavors to frame and identify what those roles and responsibilities are, and that staff are not going to be disadvantaged. It is not cutting out 5 days of employment for all the people employed within Littleton Public Schools. Instead, what it involves is identifying what the roles and responsibilities are for the days instead of adding them into the end of the calendar. And the last planning for next year is the slide we presented to you, and administrators talked about a little bit in the December meeting of when they talked with parents about how this pilot period for this year would be different from a rollout for next year. And in all of the presentations and school council meetings that Mrs. Steele and I attended, principals emphasized that the timelines and the procedures and the presentations to stakeholders for a pilot year would be different than in that last year. That's the end of our presentation. I emphasize the involvement of the Administrative Council, guidance from Dr. Clenchey, and any and all of us would be happy to take questions. I stand here alone.
What I'd like to do is first thank everybody that's sitting there. This is the biggest bullpen I've ever seen in the school committee meeting of staff. And I think it gives us a very good representation of how encompassing this effort has been. This is just a fraction of the people that have been involved, but a very representative sampling. I hope everybody understands that this was encompassing. It was and is iterative. We are not done yet. It's been responsive. There are things that were presented initially to us that have been modified and changed, some in front of us and some that you alluded to through your process with the staff. And it's ongoing. I mean, we're talking about a pilot program that we think we want to try, and then the full implementation would not be till next year, and there will be iterations and modifications as we go through the process. And I would expect that if this is something that the district embraces going forward, that it would be iterative year by year as we get better at it. The other thing I would like to emphasize, and you've told us, and I want to make sure people understand, is this is not a new program. It's new to Littleton. There are plenty of districts that have been doing this. This is a program that's been around, and the concept that's been around. But again, all the districts that have started out with it, I'm sure, have gone through iterations of it. I would like to give Dr. Clenchey an opportunity to speak to anything he has to say about this. Then we'll have a discussion amongst ourselves, and then I will open it up to public input at that point. And I'm sure we will have questions, so thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Fontanella. Last year, we started our deliberations as to whether or not we would embark upon this journey. We took a look at what other school districts were doing that had implemented the program. And we had support from our teachers. Parents had been asking us about it. The school committee had also been inquisitive. So we decided to start the journey this fall. And we've heard the word iterative many times this evening. And when we were trying to give guidance to the teachers that were working on this process, and administrators and Dr. Jamian and Mrs. Steele and on and on and on, we didn't want to be too restrictive. The power of this whole approach is creativity, teacher creativity. And we wanted to make sure that teachers had that flexibility to create materials that they wanted to do that were integral parts of their course, and not something that was an add-on. It was something that they wanted to do. It needs to be done, and our students are going to benefit from doing this. There were opportunities during the process to say, look, this has been fun. We're learning something about this, but this really isn't our cup of tea. And we never actually hit one of those conversations. But I have to tell you, this was a significant change process. It required a lot of dedication and work and commitment from our staffs and teachers especially to, first of all, ensure that what we were doing was truly going to better the educational opportunities for our students. That's a key tenet to all of us in the room this evening. And we all know when June rolls around and we're making up days, everybody's getting tired, and the quality of what's happening in our classrooms isn't quite as dynamic as it is earlier on in the year. And that's just natural. I mean, and I guess another area of consideration is, as a teacher, you plan for 180 days, and we all know that snow days are probably going to happen, but when you're planning for your courses, you want to make sure you cover the course and the standards. So you're going to be done within those 180 days no matter what. The snow days that happen, teachers take a look at their curriculum, reflect, make accommodations, and quite often those accommodations, especially in the higher grades, result in more work for students outside of the classroom. In other words, homework. So, as a superintendent and the chief educational leader for the district, I wanted to make sure that what we were doing was truly way better than what we're currently doing. And I have confidence in what I've seen. I have confidence from the conversations that I've had with teachers and administrators. And I'm just so proud of what I see this evening, and I had a chance to look at all the lessons that were submitted. They were very well done. And I'm excited about this process. And it wouldn't have happened without the work of everybody in this room and beyond. So thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And then I'm watching Dr. Ajamian talk tonight, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, Dr. Ajamian retired in December. A lot of people that retired probably would have been in Hawaii by now and offered to FaceTime back for this presentation. But no, Dr. Ajamian is so committed to the cause and the process. She's been literally here every day since the Christmas break, and she's retired. That speaks.
You guys think about changing the locks or anything like that?
No, I quite enjoy this. Excuse me, it's great. Yes, but I mean that kind of dedication, you know, is I'm so appreciative of that, because that doesn't happen that often. And for us as a district, it allows us to transition. We have so many things going on in our district, and to have Dr. Ajamian want to help us transition is fantastic. And again, I'm so appreciative of that, and as a district, we are so appreciative. So thank you, Dr. Ajamian. And then Mrs. Steele, who is our interim curriculum director, doesn't officially start until January 28th, but yet I see Beth every day in our office. So I want to thank Beth for her dedication as well. I mean, she's still running a full course load at the high school, getting ready for final exams, and helping transition to the new person that's going to come in and replace her in the classroom. The dedication is just, it's who we are as a district. And we want to do the best that we can for our students. Having said that, we're an ambitious group. And when you look at the timelines that we've put here, we're pretty driven. And we still have a few things that we really need to tweak and take a look at. Not many. And there's a window of opportunity here that we have to exercise and make sure we're ready for when the snow actually hits. Because I don't think we're going to be spared this year. I don't buy that. If it happens, it would be nice. But tradition would tell me that we're going to have some snow days and some snow. So we want to make sure that when we firm up implementation dates, that they're still ready for us to roll out, so we're going to benefit from all the hard work that everybody has done. But like anything else, we don't want to shortcut any part of this process. And we still need to meet with parents. We still need to meet with our students. And we want to make sure we take enough time with them so that they fully understand what we're trying to do and what the intent of what we're doing is. And earlier on in the process, I don't hear it much anymore, but a common phrase kept coming out, and it was bothersome, but it was part of the process, and it was understandable, and that was the phrase extra work. This has nothing to do with extra work. This has everything to do with activities that teachers need to do or want to do more correctly to cover their curriculum and offer exciting learning opportunities for our students. There are many different models out there, and we didn't replicate them. There wasn't one model that we looked at that fit what we wanted to do as a district. And I commend everybody on that, because that would have been the easier way to do this. But we wanted to do the best that we could, and we wanted to create this ourselves. So I'm going to stop there, and thank you so much again for everybody's hard work in this process.
Very good. Questions, comments, thoughts?
So I'm curious about the change to the 3 days regardless, whether that is for this year or if that's how the program's going to run. I can see that those 3 days kind of need to go together, but I wonder if it would make more sense to do, if we only have 2 snow days, we just make them up like we traditionally do, whereas we get to that 3rd day, then this program gets implemented.
Well, I can start, and then please feel free to interject. When we were having those conversations, we realized very quickly that the product that we were creating was so interlinked. And we wanted to give our students the flexibility to do these assignments when they wanted to do them and didn't want to add stress. We all know, every educator in this room has looked at our Yarvis survey. And we all know that our students, in terms of stress levels, the percentage of students that are experiencing stress is not subsiding. And it's our responsibility as leaders and educators and school committee members in this room to do whatever we can to decrease those stress levels. And we felt that by doing something like this, we were giving them the spectrum of time to create these assignments. And again, I'm going to reemphasize the fact that this work needs to be done anyway. So if, by chance of a miracle, we don't have any snow days, this would be something that would be done in the curriculum anyway. So teachers would make curriculum adjustments. Teachers make curriculum adjustments virtually every day. Talk about differentiation of instruction. There are so many definitions of it, but for me as a superintendent, what it really truly means to me is when I walk into a classroom and I see a teacher adjust their instruction because of the students that are in front of them. So it's thinking in the moment. That's what differentiated instruction is. So those adjustments would be made. So we didn't feel, after we had all of those conversations, that would be the right thing to do. I guess in a nutshell, we felt it would be devaluing the process. And I'm certainly open to additional comments.
Here I would invite the principals to answer your question as well. I'll be quoting them. But when we had a number of discussions about not just the staggered due dates, but having a program design where the equivalent of 3 days of learning assignments would be completed, regardless of the number of snow days. And Principal Basillo, Principal Temple, they all emphasized, the authentic, integrated, cutting-edge nature of the assignments and the ability and, in fact, the frequency in which teachers adjust and accommodate and flow through those assignments that reflect the learning standards in their course every year. So we felt in order for us authentically to emphasize the standards-based authentic program design that we have and not to give the impression that this is finite pieces of added work that would be assigned based on the date and number of snow days. That's why we had the packet of 3.
But specifically the question there, guys, the 3 days is because is for the pilot because we're starting halfway through the year, and the expectation is that in following years you would do all 5 days worth of work, regardless of the number of snow days, but you would get a much wider window.
You would have the work. You would have the work presented in back-to-school nights in October.
Right.
You would have the full year to address those learning standards and those learning activities. The modification of taking a look at how many days in total would be done as of spring break came out of discussions right here at school committee, and it was our reaction to school committee and parent questions about the number of days and the more compressed time frame of the pilot. So we are no longer saying 5 days of work no matter how many snow days, but we are saying this packet of learning activities that adds up to the minutes of 3 days, shortened, albeit shortened days, will be due as of April 12th.
And one of the challenges, too, with giving flexibility to students, what do you do with a student who decides to get this done right away, and then all of a sudden it's not counted? Everything we did was going to be valued, and we're back to the word value. And part of the coursework that's to be done. In terms of next year, we really don't have a definitive direction yet in terms of whether we would come back with the same proposal. Let's chunk 3 days and then exercise the right to use 2 other days if necessary. I mean, we're playing with Mother Nature, no matter what way we look at it. But if you go back and look at our demographics for snow days, we've had an average of 4.2 snow days a year, not including the late starts to our delays. So the chances of us not using 3 are pretty minimal as we look at this process.
You know, and in answer to your question too, I think I mentioned it last time, and it was highlighted more in the October presentation, that blended learning, digital connections through curricular components and curriculum programs, that's part of Littleton practice. So we're having things that reflect currently our practice. And a way to phrase that is, you know, we really don't believe that learning is bound by the 4 walls of a classroom or the hours in a school day. It goes, you know, in different venues and at different times. And students, we talk about chunking assignments, students are able to chunk the time. We had the secondary principals and assistant principals in the instructional planning team. They were the ones echoing very forcefully what Dr. Clinchie just said, for the staggered due dates. In order for the secondary level students that have sports responsibilities, they have jobs outside of school, and they have a number of different things to balance. We did professional development last year on executive functioning skills and organization. So, you know, Dr. Harrington and Mrs. Temple, Mr. Everhart, Mr. Cohen, all emphasize the importance for secondary level students for different reasons to not quote-unquote grading, but planning an organization for students. So in answer to your question, we may have staggered next year, but the time frames for everything that you'll be involved in next year will change.
Anything else, Erica?
I said, of course, I guess, would be the appropriate.
I would have been disappointed otherwise.
But actually, I'm gonna maybe just continue on the same line that Erica just started here. I just jotted down charts 14 and 16 were the first ones that started talking about the calendar dates there. Feel better after the conversation here, but I got really confused in terms of trying to understand 1, 2, and 3 number of snow days. You know, part of it is a communications piece here. I found the discussion that Dr. Clenchie had at the end there that it's integrated into the planning and an integral part of the course program for the year. I think it needs to come a little bit more clear in terms of that's the way this is laid out, and then it supports that 3-day block, I think, a little bit more clearer than it came across here, because I was really not really clear about that. And then when I got the choice blocks, again, I should be able to figure it out, but it took me a little bit to figure out exactly what you were talking about in the choice blocks there. But I think as I look at it now in terms of, just do that comment that I just said, how do you actually distinguish this from just being yet another homework or project assignment? You know, in terms of both the communications and the expectations, given that you're saying it is now required to do this. Obviously, when we put it in the context of that there's going to be a snow day, but it's not a snow day assignment.
No, it's not.
No. So how, you know, I think it goes back in terms of how you're communicating that, because in a way you've just communicated that there's 6 homework assignments, these 3 half-day choice blocks that are due, independent of whether we have a snow day or not. Chances are we're going to have the snow days, but elsewhere it says that these are not snow day assignments. So part of it is just making sure we're clear on the communications of what it is, what the expectation is, because it does sound like it's 6 homework assignments that must be completed there. So I just like us to just, I'm not opposed to the program. I just, you know, reacting to what I'm hearing right now, and I just wanted to bring that forward there. The other part that caught me a little bit here, let me go to chart 29. Try to write them down so I remember where I wanted to make my comment. This was on the flexibility of the evaluation piece here. I appreciate the comments made in terms of making sure the staff and teachers have a role in how the material is used for it. But similar to the comment that I think Mike just made is we don't want to have them do it and then it not count, but consistency of how it counts, I think, makes a difference for people in terms of, is it always going to, is it only with this particular teacher it counts as one homework assignment, but this other teacher it counts as a quiz? I think there's going to need to be some communication and consistency about how it influences a grade there, particularly since there's differences in terms of how much quizzes count versus homework count relative to the overall grade assigned to the students. So I think there needs to make sure there's crisp communications around that, because flexibility and buy-in is one thing, but as it's coming from the other side there, it can also look a little inconsistent there in terms of how is my work going to be affecting my grade and the other pieces there. Is that identified up front, or when is that identified to the students and the parents? Type of thing there. So I think that just needs to be part of the communications piece of that there. One choice block, and hold on a second. Yeah, I talked about that. And then the last one was, again, I think reference links to supplemental material, which then is inconsistent with printed material. So how are we, the supplemental material, how is that made available to students? Are they expected to, during school time, download it, print it, bring it home, or? Well, I just want to understand. I mean, you made a lot of accommodations for making sure copies, but then you talked about supplemental materials.
The reference there was to maybe the reading materials or the learning program or the print materials, that may be a range of materials that students could choose from. I'll start answering that question by emphasizing what Mrs. Steele said about the posting of student assignments. From the primary school to the high school, the instructional leads and the principals emphasize that the student assignments will be posted on the LPS website. We did not find that to be the case with many districts, that throughout the K to 12 spectrum, that the assignments were there posted up front for all to see as exemplars. And in working with Mrs. Dale and Mrs. Steele early in October, before our first presentation to the school committee, they emphasized that we want to be, I mean, they were the leads for this district, but they wanted Littleton to be a leader in terms of exemplar. But not only will the materials and links to those materials be there, if a student has internet and decides, wherever they're sitting, in school, after school, wherever, to click on. But this, the faculty, the professional staff in this district post their assignments in different places. So the assignments will also be posted in, this was in the previous presentation, if teachers use Google Classroom, if teachers use Google Sites, if teachers post their learning activities on Aspen, the regular places where teachers communicate assignments and materials to students, that will be utilized also. And then at the primary school and intermediate elementary, Russell Street, they will be addressing that with students and parents as well. So access to materials in digital and print form will already be there. That was the point we were making. So that if a student and family decides to do address the learning activity on the snow day and the power goes off. They may have that packet. They'll have those color folders that we purchased for every single student, and the materials will be going home. Every single student got a copy of the book, and those books will be going home. So it's not going to be tied to an unexpected snow day. Students will have those materials. And you heard Mrs. Deacon talk about going over the materials with the children. Parents may want to emphasize and allow their children of different ages to go out and play in the snow on a snow day. So part of my answer, or our answer to both of you about the staggered dates and when to do assignments, we purposely chunked the material so that 3 days of work would be a holistic group of learning activities that's not tied to a specific day.
Yeah, no, my primary question was the primary materials. It was clear in your presentations and discussions that the primary materials for the assignments will be made available in print area. There was a comment about supplemental materials at the teacher's discretion may be linked. Linked does not imply the copies there. So I'm specifically asking about the additional materials and the availability of that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Kind of in there.
To speak, and just briefly, very quickly to that, I think we need to acknowledge the day and age that we're in. We have a ton of technology. Our students have access to a ton of technology. And I think we really wanted to do a hybrid model that allowed students access to the technology if and they desire that route, but also have access to printed materials. So specifically the links that I was talking about, hyperlinking, students can go on and access that via technology if they so choose. However, those resources are all available in print at the school. So that students, if they're not able to do it for whatever reason, then the student also has access to those resources.
I was looking for that clarification.
Absolutely, and I'm sorry I didn't provide it sooner. But, yeah.
Does that mean the student has to go and request the packet themselves, or is it, how do we?
So I think that's a great point, because students may not want to go request and make that known. So teachers should have available packets for students to pick up. So when they're explaining the assignments, they can say, I have some packets over, in a particular folder or in a certain spot. Even so that way teachers don't have to be making all these extra copies that may not get used, but yet there is some available for students who may want to discreetly just go get some. Thank you.
These assignments are not isolated from what's happening in the classroom, and sometimes you're right, messaging is very important, but there's a tendency to draw a conclusion that when you're making up something, a snow day, for example, that it's an isolated amount of work that you're doing, and it's interlinked into what teachers are doing in the classroom, and there are many ways that they'll continue on with those instructional lessons that are happening. We went round and round about, do we give these assignments one at a time? I mean, it kept coming back to us, and I sat at the table one day and I said, I really need you to go back out, and we need to listen to our teachers. I mean, they're the ones that have been instrumental and created what we have, and when we had that discussion another time, it was very evident to me that the 3-day chunking, for lack of a better word, was necessary to maintain the integrity of what we're trying to do here. It was really interesting when we went away from our last school committee meeting, and Chairman Fontanella had talked about maybe 3 days. We went back to the table, and that was a long, sometimes strenuous discussion, because people were so in the framework or in the mindset of this 5-day package, and it really took a lot of time for us to figure out how we're going to tease that out into 3.
I'm sorry?
And no, it was good. I think this is an iterative process, and we're going to learn from this pilot, and we were so caught up in what is this going to look like for 5 days. We wanted to make sure that it was meaningful for all 5 days, that we really didn't think about what you had said. And it was a good thing that you mentioned that, because then we could go back and have that conversation and say, we can make that work. And in reality, there may be a year where we have 3 days. I mean, who knows? I haven't seen one of those for many, many years, but you never know. So I'm trying to remember, Darryl, the last part of your discussion that you had brought up. Because I don't think I answered.
No, I think you get the gist of it. Part of it is just mainly in the messaging on how it's coming across, but the other part, and we got, what, 35, 40 people in the room here today. We probably have 35 to 40 different ways that somebody would tackle 3 to 5 days worth of work over the course of a year. And I bet we don't, but we have 1,600 students, so that's probably 3,000 or 4,000 different approaches that we might end up with. And some of them may involve doing them on close to or during, the snow days, or if we have, like we've had the ice storm for a week type of thing there. I knew one of my neighbors was out of power for the week. So these are not just made up contingencies, they might.
It's a good point.
And us anticipating and understanding, the other part is I'm sensitive to the fact that not everybody has the same level of access or other pieces there. So we have to have a program that is fully encompassing, but not necessarily that I want to say we print everything and send it out to 1,600 students. We have a spectrum of students, and I think it's just, we got to be careful about making assumptions about how people can access it or do it, because just as you have even in terms of this, the special educational needs and the other pieces there, everybody will accept and digest the material differently. And I just want to make sure that stays at the forefront of the way we implement the program.
So the other thing is, I think that we need to be careful about this program there's no program will be able to proactively be developed for every contingency.
Right.
For instance, when we had the ice storm, we went to school on a Saturday. We weren't the only ones.
Yep.
Other districts in the central and West Mass went to school on many Saturdays.
Yep.
Because they had to adjust, because that was a very abnormal circumstance.
Right.
But they made the districts. We made adjustments. The district made adjustments. If something like that happens, we will make adjustments, as we always do, to deliver the curriculum as required, but more importantly, as we want to. Right. So those are all good concerns, but I just want to make sure we all understand.
I'm not driving the program one way or the other.
No, I get you.
About just making sure that like I said, how I may choose to implement it within my family is not the way I want to make sure that I dominate the discussion here, because I can't anticipate the whole spectrum of different family situations and how they may engage this process.
But that point you made me think about something we didn't talk about or mention, is that time span to complete the assignment allows us to accommodate for most of everything we can think about.
Yep.
And we wanted to make sure we thought of as many things as we can, but again, it's a pilot, and we're going to learn as we go along that maybe there's some things we haven't thought about yet. The last thing you had talked about, and this came back to me, is consistency in terms of how we mark these assignments. In the teaching profession, we don't mandate to our teachers that course X, we expect you to have 7 assignments and 4 exams. It really depends on how the course is designed, what kind of course it is. So when we had this conversation, and Dr. Ajamian and Mrs. Still came back to me, and they talked about, well, could we be consistent? The first thing that came to my mind is, we're not consistent now, and we shouldn't be, because our courses are very, very different. But what we wanted to do is provide a framework so that it was as fair as it could be for everybody.
I'd be careful. We are consistent. We're just not. It's not homogenous.
Right. That would be
we
a
are
better word.
consistent. It adjusts based on the course, and in some ways by the teacher. Some teachers will have different ideas of how to assess mastery, and how to be effective in challenging their students and giving them wanting to do the work. So But it is a great point. I had, that's one question off my list, or one comment off my list is, and I think that the staff will be working towards that, as they always do, but that's not to expect that coming out of the gate, we're going to see it perfectly. We never would, I wouldn't expect that.
I mean, after we do this until the end of the year, some of this will become clearer to the teachers in terms of, what makes sense for their assessments and their course. And we also wanted to make sure that the assessments that are going to be marked for the days, the snow days, would not result in any significantly negative impact on any of our students. Our goal is to have every student successfully complete these assignments, and we're committed to everything in our power to help students do that.
I mean, the term that Beth used was they will be marked, some will be marked like homework assignments, or 2 homework assignments, or a quiz grade, which most of the marking is homework, quizzes, some tests, but not as many. And this is not designed to, because most of the days our students are not tested. They're assessed, and I think this is in line with that. I think we can, that's what I heard, and I think that, and I think we're talking specifically at the secondary level.
Right.
At the primary level, at the elementary level, we saw the rubric, which I think would be very consistent.
Yeah.
Across the grades and classrooms.
I think it just matters in terms of, the variation of how much homework counts as part of your
correct,
grade.
right, and that's each teacher has different ideas about that.
Not quiz assignment. Those nuances matter a lot to the students.
Right, they need to understand. Right, the students and the families need to understand that up front.
Right.
Not after the fact.
Not afterwards and go, I didn't realize this was going to count.
But that's true of any assessment that.
No, that's what I mean.
Right.
Right, and that wouldn't vary.
It wouldn't vary, but I don't think it wasn't clear how that would be communicated in terms of as part of the packet or the process.
All right, good. Yeah.
Daryl actually covered my question that I was going to ask.
I could have gone first and saved your voice for it.
I would just, back up. I feel it has to be worth something so that at the secondary level that the kids aren't just going to say, blow it off. So I would like to see some consistency there, but other than that, I like that it's more oriented towards each course rather than by department, so it can be more individualized. And you've answered all my questions from October, so I'm happy.
Jen?
Okay. So thank you guys. It's very obvious you guys have done a ton of work, and so many people have put their time into it. And everything I've seen from other districts, it's not like any of those, and I think you guys have done a great job. My goal as a member on the school committee is to make sure that all students get an equal opportunity to be successful. And in all of this, looking at the definition of DESE's definition of structured learning time, you look at this and you say, is this really structured? I'm sure, many parents, and if not most parents in our town, have the ability to provide the structure for the children that really need it. But there's no doubt some set of students that do not have a parent or somebody that can sit down with them and make sure that this work outside the classroom provides the same structure that they would get sitting in a classroom all day. So I just, I'm really curious about that. It's not even the ability to have internet access or anything like that. I'm having difficulty finding this as a replacement for that kind of structured learning. And if I could just go on a little more, especially, for other services like behavioral or social support, children who have IEPs, they get speech, OT, PT, etc. So I really would love to hear more about those aspects. So we're not just, we're not just talking about the assignment part also.
I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Meir. I'm going to make a real brief comment. When we were looking at this and making sure that students had the accommodations they needed to be successful, we first of all had to decide who is responsible for what. And if a student is in a regular education classroom, then the regular education teacher would be responsible for making those accommodations. If they were pulled out into a separate program, then the teacher, the SPED teacher that was responsible for that student would be creating assignments that would meet that student's needs. But having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Justine.
So I'll speak directly to your question about the related services. And quite a while ago now, Dr. Clench and I met with all the related service providers because we did recognize the impact that this could have for students with disabilities. So we met just to talk about ideas about how those services that were missed given a snow day would be made up. And they will be able to all be on an individual basis, really, but some ideas that were just generated is if a student's absent during their scheduled time, another student could be, that was missed on the snow day, could be kind of replaced into that service time. All our service providers do have, tight schedules. We absolutely recognize that, but they will certainly make adjustments to be able to make up the service time. Adding time adjacent to the student's regularly scheduled session could be another option. And I just want to also recognize this is not unlike what's happened in the past when a snow day, say, has maybe fallen on a Monday, and then the day made up in June happens to be a Wednesday. So many of our service providers, their schedule is based on the day of the week. So just when those days don't always coincide, with what's made up in June, their service providers have still made similar adjustments to be able to make up the student's time who has missed. So, is that?
Yeah, that mostly answers it, but I'm just curious, how many children do we have on IEPs, and how many services are each of those children getting? I mean, if we have, 400 children with IEPs and each of them receive 2 services, and for maybe they both fall on that snowy Tuesday, and they're 3 snowy Tuesdays. I feel like we had a bunch of snowy Wednesdays last year or something. But they're, do we have the ability to reschedule all, 70 kids or 70 sessions that they missed that day? Is that really, I don't know, is that reasonable?
So it would be looking at, we have just over 300 students on IPs at this current moment, and each service provider has their own caseload. So we're talking speech and language pathologists, PT, occupational therapists, BCBAs, so on. And on a given day, it would vary, really. So it depends on, some schools have their meeting days, and that's fewer students that are seen for direct service that day because there is time blocked out for meetings and evaluations. So again, it's hard to say, who is seen on a given day, but service providers try really diligently to not have students miss more than a certain amount of services on the same day. So if they are seen for pull-out direct services, it's usually coordinated with the other related service providers so that they're taken out, necessarily for a big chunk of time on the same day to see multiple providers.
Law that they have to make up those services?
They would be owed compensatory services.
Right, okay.
One-to-one, small group, anything that's
and even other things like for students not on IEPs that might have an RTI shorter session thing. Are those included in this or?
No.
So there could be children who lose out on some kind of something that somebody has knowledge is a problem and they might not be able to make it up. Well,
no, I'm not sure what you...
if there's a kid that's in a return to intervention group and doesn't get that service because of the day, they would just miss out on that. That would not be made up, is what you... I thought that was what you just said. Is that... Sorry.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, RTI is a short 6 to 8 week intervention period, so, I would say that the time would be made up if that was one particular day or something. Is that what you're saying? I thought
you said no, and so that's why I was just curious about it. But that's fine.
Yeah.
I think it was the law. Is it law that RTI has to be made up?
Oh,
well, that's
right.
That's part of it. Is it?
No.
Okay.
Well, and to remember that most of our RTI windows have ended by the last week of school. So even
that wouldn't be happening then anyway.
The windows are defined, 6 to 8 weeks. So
right. That's a good point too. Yeah. Okay.
No, you wouldn't wait.
Yeah. So then, and then the one other question I had was regarding the flex block or the advisory period. So I know we do that in the middle school and high school. We don't do that in Russell Street, but was that specific to the secondary school? This is not a question.
Yes,
it is.
Flex blocks. Flex blocks.
There's
Middle school and advisory in the high school.
Okay. Oh, that's what the difference. Okay. And every student has a flex block or advisory where they can develop this communication between. Okay.
But the high school is more new this year. We extended the time this year.
Okay. Okay. And that's all then. Thank you.
As a parent, I don't have any problem with the idea of this program, and I don't really have any questions because we've had a lot of information put forward. I am curious. I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out and how it's received and how we modify as we go forward. I don't have children that will participate in this. They're either grown or not in the district, but I wish we did have it. The idea that I could have given them something to do at various points in the year when they are too slack at home, which is often, I would have taken full advantage of it. As I'm listening to the talk, I started to think about it. I like to think about it not in days. Let's think about it in hours. We do 180 days a year, 6 hours is 1,080 hours. Now, obviously, not all of that is doing work. A significant portion of that is the delivery of instruction and curriculum and everything else. You know, it's gym and art and going to the between classes and going to lunch and field trips and all kinds of great stuff. But a significant portion of it is doing the work. What we're talking about is the potential for a high school student to do, 15 hours of real work into the amount of hours they're going to do. Is it extra? No, it's probably not going to be extra. It's just 15 hours of the work they're going to do anyway, just delivered differently depending on how many snow days we have. Worst case, I don't really like to use it like that, but I'm sure that's how some people are thinking about it, especially the students, is that you're going to do 15 hours of work. On a percentage basis, it's probably less than 5% more work. And that's if we don't have any snow days. Shocking to believe that would ever happen. I guess it's possible, but it's highly improbable. In the middle of it, you're going to do, a high school student would do maybe 5 hours of work that they weren't otherwise going to do. It's an even smaller percentage of the amount of work they do anyway. So I don't think that we should be, obsessing about, oh my God, they're going to do so much more work. They do work. And we heard at length that this is the same kind of work that they were going to do. It's just that they're going to be doing it in a different manner, somewhat self-directed, having to be independent about it, time management, executive management. Jen, you asked the question of, there are families that will be challenged by this, but those same families are challenged by kids bringing home work every day or every weekend. It's just how we do it. And it's not really any more than they were going to do anyway. That's the way I'm looking at it. I know other people might not be quite as sanguine about it as I am. I have talked about this with a fair amount of people that I know that still have school-age children in Littleton, because I don't want to be the one saying, well, I love it. Why don't you do it? That's great. You'd be crazy not to do it because I don't think I'm all that, smart. And the vast majority, nobody really told me they thought this was a terrible idea. The people I've talked to are very supportive of it. They have concerns about understanding how it's going to work and the timelines, and I think, as Darryl said, we've got to continue to work it. And some of it is answering specific questions about how this program works, but also answering more general questions. Why are we doing this? Why is this any good? Why don't we just make up the days? I'm very nervous that my child is not going to be doing this work in class. Well, they don't do this work in class anyway. I think we need to make sure that we're driving that point home. So again, I'm excited about it. I am very curious. I don't think that we're done by any stretch of the imagination, and I hope that everybody that's been listening to these various presentations, I think you guys stressed that theme very well, that it's iterative and we've been responsive to concerns that have already been raised, but those were conceptual concerns because we haven't tried this yet. And once we try it, I think we're going to get a lot of feedback, and I think it'll go a long way towards informing how to make this as beneficial as possible, just in terms of delivering curriculum and challenging our students to be as good as they can be, not just how are we going to avoid going to school on June 27th or 28th or 29th, as the case may be. So those are the comments I have. At this point, I would open it up to any public input on this particular program. It's got to come up to the microphone so that the television audience can hear you. And all we need is your name and street and your comments.
I'm Nina Warner. I live on Cricket Lane, and I'm a senior at Littleton High School. I think it's like really awesome what you guys did. Obviously, the teachers put a lot of work in to make it clear, and I'm really glad I came to this meeting because I learned a lot about like how much work went into it and like what it's about. And my only like concern is that as a senior, like as far as I can remember, seniors haven't had to make up snow days. So I'm just wondering why we have to like do like the work now, considering the past years we haven't.
Right. I've talked to some other seniors and some last year's seniors who were laughing, but I told them to stop it. I mean, it's a question, you know, you guys are going to be the first class if we do it that's going to do it. Next year will be the second class and then the third class. I guess the way I would think about it is we had a bunch of classes that had to guts out high school in a crummy building when the middle school, where the high school used to be down there. And that building, as a community, we waited I wouldn't say way too long, but a significant number of years too long. And we had students that were saying, why am I the class that had to go to this crummy building? Or why didn't you guys do this 3 years ago so I could have gone to the nice shiny new building up on a hill? So sometimes you get something and sometimes you get, depending on timing, it's the one. But you're right. I mean, you guys will definitely do more work than a number of hours of effort than you might have otherwise done if there were snow days. If there weren't snow days, you would have done the work anyway.
So, I can say, when I graduated from Littleton High School, I was the first class that was required to do community service. We'd all agree that that's a good thing, doing community service, and I'm glad that we did it. But at the time, we're like, why do we have to do this? No one before us had to do this. And, you know, first lesson in life, it's not always fair. But it is what it is.
We're not trying to make light of it. I mean, you guys are definitely going to be the first class that's going to have to address this. It's, you know, we're saying, oh, it's only 15 hours. You know, you guys are, you know, a lot of you take on a lot of work. You do a lot of class work. You guys are doing AP classes. You make significant commitments to extracurricular activities, and we know it's a lot. And Dr. Clenchey talked about the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. It's something that we see when you guys answer those questions. So we're making light of it to a degree, but we understand exactly the point you're trying to make.
If I could add a couple of things, and I hope this will help.
I don't know that it's really going to help for the seniors of this particular class. But
most of my teaching career was spent teaching high school, and where I was, we didn't actually make up snow days. Our whole schedule was based on minutes of instruction, so we could figure it out without having to make those days up. But I remember vividly teaching senior classes and how much pressure I felt as a teacher to make sure that curriculum was done. Now, I was part of a system where every senior had to write an exit exam worth 50% of their mark. So that actually added a lot more pressure to the situation. But you're going to do the work anyway. What we're trying to do here, and I'm really curious whether this is what we're going to find, I'm hoping we're going to find this, is that when May comes around, and even part of April, that you're not going to be burdened with as much homework as you currently are after we have snow days. Every teacher has a set curriculum that they have to teach. There's no option for teachers to say, oh, I really don't like doing this unit, I'm going to throw it up. By law, they have to teach the standards. So they're under a lot of pressure to get through those courses. And you're under a lot of pressure as a student because in order for them to get through the courses, quite often they will give you more homework. And so we're hoping that's going to, in the long run or in the short run, going to help alleviate some of the stress that you feel you're under during those times of year.
To add on with the stress point, sorry, I'm like nervous, so I sound a little shaky.
You're doing a great job. Don't be nervous.
But that's like I'm crying, but I'm not. So May 15th is the due date for well, if we have all 5. But that's like the week before our last day. So we would have, well, if the way it is with senior privileges, if you have like an A for like the classes, like the year, you don't take the final exam, but like if you don't, you have to take the final exam. So our next week would be final exams. So like maybe the teachers would have to grade our snow packets and our final exams, and we have to get our and getting the grades out in time to like send it off to our colleges if a student's planning on college. Sorry, my voice is bothering me.
You're doing great.
Don't go sit on that side of the room, you're going to sound worse.
Yeah, we're coughing in Harvard right now. And that's a good point, and I guess that's why we're calling it a pilot, and we need to figure those things out along the way. I believe we're one of the very few states that gives our seniors that kind of luxury. I'd never heard of it before until I became a superintendent in Massachusetts. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but for all of us in this room, we want to make sure that you have all the skill sets you need to be successful. When we see you post-high school, we want to hear about all the wonderful things that you're doing. And hopefully nobody will ever come to us and say, man, you sure didn't prepare us for this or that. So, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. We want to honor what we've done because we feel that's important, but at the same time we don't want to shortchange your education either. And I'm hoping that by doing it this way, you're going to do the same amount of work. You're just not going to have as much homework for those 5 days, if you miss 5 days, that you would have if we wouldn't have done this. So that's how I see it, but that may not be the way everybody sees it.
I appreciate the point you're raising about the particular time frame that the seniors have to deal with, and I would just ask the administration to think about maybe there's a modification for the seniors, assuming that we get to the 5.
Right.
You know, if we don't, then it's a moot point, a good point, but moot at that point. Anyway.
Name's giving me some things to think about, and I can follow up with her about that.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, I think.
Good.
Thank you so much for
Lena,
coming.
just before you leave, I'd just like to say, I am sure there have been some animated conversations at the high school among more than one senior that had the nerve to come up here to this public meeting and get in front of the microphone.
And
So
I'm
thank
glad I
you.
got to get more information.
I
than
hope you
numbers.
better get a lot of thanks in the hallways tomorrow.
That's right.
All right.
Thank you.
Great job.
Good job.
I'm used to being in the house seat. I'm Amy Tarla Lewis. I'm at 3 Omega Way. And so I'm not as happy about the blizzard bags as other people are. I am very impressed with the amount of work that has gone into this, but I'm also a little bit shocked at how much time has been invested with all of these staff and resources and substitute teachers for what is really just a pilot program. I really see 2 issues. I see a snow day issue and an alternative learning program issue. I also see risk, and I also see inequity in the system. I don't understand what the problem is, and I don't see what the urgency is. School start times, underfunded SPED, school repairs, and growing class sizes are very real problems that need to be addressed. Blizzard bags somehow seem to be a manufactured problem that Littleton Public School can solve quickly and carry as a win. Snow days are not our biggest issues. Are we creating a problem and making it a priority and then creating more problems along the way? It also seems like this process hasn't been fully transparent. I feel like we've now said we're doing this pilot program, we've invested a huge amount of time and resources and staff into it, and we're already talking about doing it next year. And we haven't even rolled the pilot out and really surveyed people. I think it's a little presumptuous to say that we're going to be doing this next year. I think the snow days can easily be addressed by adjusting the current calendar, thereby creating no additional work or no additional risk for anybody. This year we started school days on a Wednesday. Let's just make it a Tuesday. Run professional development days in late August, thereby making up the hours of contact time, since we're all going to think about this as hours and not days. Start school before Labor Day. We can work with the current calendar framework without creating all this extra debate, risk, and work. In terms of the SPED, it's my understanding that there are 338 IEPs out there and 50 kids on 504s.
I really don't think that we have a plan to support these IEPs and 504s. Let's say we have 390 kids to support, and that let's say they each have 2 services, because many kids on IEPs have more than one. That means we have 780 services to be made up. If we have 3 snow days, that's 2,340 services to be made up within half to a quarter of the year left. As learning is cumulative and curriculum moves fast, timely services must be delivered to our kids. With staff overstretched, SPED underfunded, kids not on IEPs who should be, kids who have lost services who should have them, or kids who not have enough services, how is this going to happen with the current level of resources that we currently have? I don't think fitting kids in around other kids being out is going to make up all of the extra time. And if you're going to double up a child's service, because they're usually given in half-hour blocks, you add another half an hour, you're taking them from something else away from them that's equally important, whether it's reading, math, or gym, or recess, which is equally important for kids. I do not believe that Littleton Public Schools has the ability to legally meet the service delivery schedule for all of our children. I think a breach of an IEP will land Littleton Public School in federal court. With low-income families and families with challenges, there is a wide variety of circumstances in every home. Not all parents and caregivers have the time and the capacity to provide a week's worth of educational support to our children. Some parents might not have the interest, and some might not have the capacity. For some kids, school is a place of refuge. Some kids hate homework and will fight to the bitter, bitter end. Some have complex educational needs, and some adults have physical and mental health needs, which will decrease their abilities to support their kids. Low-income families who already have huge pressures are going to be forced to help their kids make up a week's worth of school with time and energy that they do not have. How you ensure that these academics will be applied equally, fairly, and equitably through each household. I also am not understanding how success will be measured and tracked. What happens if only 40% of the district turns in their work? Does that still count as a full day of school for the district? Who is going to administer and maintain this program at a district level? And with what extra staff time do our overworked staff have to implement this program? How are you going to measure the positive and negative impacts of learning? If kids don't hand in their work, will kids be marked absent or truant? I do not feel that this homework, or whatever you want to call it, is going to be really as good as being in the classroom with our highly trained, highly educated, very motivated, very competent teachers. I think the Department of Education has no policy on blizzard bags. Actually, they don't. I think if they did, they would likely start with a policy that first accommodates IEPs. I think we should wait until they create that policy. This is a program with a lawsuit in the waiting. The program is detrimental to SPED kids and low-income families and rewards families who just want to leave early on vacation. Meanwhile, invest time into a separate independent educational program and address that desire to incorporate meaningful alternative learnings into our district. Do not tie alternative learning to snow days. Keep them separate. That's it. I'm always a squeaky wheel every time I come.
That's all right.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Is that okay now?
Yep.
I mean, I think Amy brings up a really good point is what is this trying to solve? So if anybody has information about
Yeah, I'm not sure why we've done all this work and we can just adjust the calendar. And I value alternative learning. I absolutely do. I have a non-traditional learner in my house.
The adjusting the calendar isn't as simplistic as we would like it to be. We have a contract with the LEA, and there is specific language in there about how the calendar is administered relative to their expectations as our employees. The other thing is that we have done, we've had 2 specific efforts relative to the calendar that we did a lot of community outreach with, and there was a lot of pushback on a lot of the issues that you say, well, we could do this, and then people don't want to do that. And we've done a significant amount of effort to try to make sure we understand how the community wants to deliver the calendar, the school calendar year. So while those things would help, they're not really as available as we would hope they would be relative to this particular issue. We didn't say that we were going to implement it next year. We specifically said this is a pilot. We specifically said that we would reevaluate how it impacts the district, and we specifically said that we would get feedback from the community before we made a decision about whether or not we're going to go ahead and go forward with it. We've had a lot of the issues that you raised, we have had information on, and when you say the lack of transparency, I really disagree. We've had a significant amount of delivery of a lot of these issues at multiple school committee meetings. And we've talked about how the issues that have been, some of the issues that were raised have been addressed already, and we've been, I think we've tried to be specific tonight about, as more issues emerge, we're confident that they will be addressed. If at the end of this, we simply realize it's not going to work, and it could be specific issues that you raised, it could be other issues that other people raised, it could be issues none of us have been able to think about until we've actually tried something, then we'll know whether or not we really think we can support this as a district. The DESE doesn't have a specific policy about snow days in this type of program, but they do support it, and they support it in the sense that we can't just do it, we have to show them what we're doing, and then they'll tell us, yes, that's acceptable and meets the standards. You can go ahead with that if you want to as a district. So, you know, we definitely have raised the issue. The SPED issue in the delivery of SPED services was raised by Erica at the last meeting. Jen raised it again tonight, and you raised it again. You know, I think we need to pay attention to that. But as we said, the delivery of SPED is affected by multiple factors beyond snow days, and we make it work. I get what you're saying about the lack of funding, and that's that we're going to have another talk about that on a different agenda item later tonight. That hopefully will alleviate some of those concerns at the state level. We'll see. I don't. Do you have another question?
Well,
other questions?
Yeah, I feel like I didn't get any answers about what problem this is trying to solve.
Well, we've had talk about at previous meetings that the delivery of curriculum at the end of the school year, when it's clearly being tagged on because of snow days, isn't as effective and as meaningful as we want it to be.
I mean, I've heard the anecdotal stories as well. I haven't seen anything that's saying, yeah, June is just like trash. I've never heard that like officially anywhere.
I mean, I don't know how to make
So
it official other than the anecdotal stories. I mean, I've been a teacher for 15 years, and I think any teacher would attest that the quality of instruction and those added days are just, they're not, I mean, unless you go into a school and see for yourself what's going on, the kids are burnt out.
I went to school, right? Like, I know, but we keep referring to them as added days, and I think that's kind of, maybe that's the problems. We're calling them added on days. They're not added on days, they're just 180 days. So
Well, actually, if we use the current method of dealing with snow days, we're adding days on. We go to 185 days if we use 5 days. The statute's very clear. We need to ensure that our students attend school for 180 days. When we design our calendar, the statute also states that you need to include 5 extra days. So when you design your calendar, you should have 185 days.
Right, so it says last day with snow days, last day without snow days.
So if we have a snow day without the pilot program, we're going to go an extra day. We'll go 181 days. We have 2 snow days, we're going to go 182 days.
But you don't go that one day, right?
But they're not in the classroom 180 or 100.
Yeah,
the school
yeah.
calendar gets stretched out.
Yeah.
School calendar.
The amount of elapsed time from the start.
Classroom 180.
Yeah, you're still in the classroom for 180
That's right.
days.
Well, of course, we're not adding days.
Right.
We can't add days.
Right.
So, I mean, everybody has different thoughts on this, and like any other district, we listen to people when they have suggestions to us. There are a number of districts that have done this for a few years, and they're very pleased with the results of doing it. I've been in the classroom a lot of years, and I've been in this profession a lot of years, and those adding days on are going to 185 days, but still having 180 days. Those last chunk of days are hard to match the kind of instruction that you would see at different times in the year.
And the other thing I'd like to bring up is, or reiterate, is part of the idea of this is that it is an alternative delivery methodology of delivering legitimate curriculum that may very well be beneficial relative to, the curriculum is going to get delivered. The ancillary benefit is that we do get out a little earlier on days that we find that can be difficult to get through because of climate, etc. But that's not the reason why we're doing it. We're doing it because it gives us the opportunity to deliver the 1,000 hours of instruction and work that the students do over a calendar year, and allows the families to manage it. I get that there are families that are going to struggle with it because they struggle with the idea of doing work outside the classroom anyway. But this isn't additional work. It's just, it may be a couple of hours of additional work relative to how many cancellations we truly have.
But it is,
But you outsource the work to the
It
parents.
does affect special ed kids more than a typical child, because those kids are missing services.
That's a different issue.
then-
If they're missing the
so then-
services,
so then-
that's true.
But during those snow days, they'd miss that anyway, so we already have a system
But then
in place
if you
to
had,
deal with
if you
that.
didn't lose the week of the work, you'd have an extra week to make up the contact time with the specialist and the child.
But a lot of those days, Amy, depending on the grade level, kids are gone on field trips. Or they have
And that's another
sports.
concern of mine, but I'm not going to bring it up
No,
now.
this is the reality I'm talking about here. This is reality. So we're not going to, unless a parent really wants us to, take a student out of a field day to offer those services.
Yeah, but that's punishing the child.
Exactly, but I'm trying to make a point in terms of, please don't think that those 5 days, if there were 5 snow days, that what happens during those 5 days is not going to involve some of those things.
I would like just to stress, the issue of the delivery of sped services has been raised multiple times. You raise it again tonight, and it's legitimate. It's been raised by school committee members. It's been addressed by our staff, and this is a pilot program. I would argue that you're probably right. That's the linchpin. Most of the students who are not on IEPs or getting delivery of special education services are probably going to find that this program is fairly straightforward to manage, because it's not a lot different than a lot of the work they're already doing. I think in terms of our evaluation of it, that will be an emphasis. If we're finding as a district that we simply can't live without the 5 days in the building for any number of reasons, and this might be the most important reason for that particular delivery of curriculum, then that's going to be the deal breaker. But I think that there are enough other districts that have done this, and the DESE recognizes that it can be a viable way of delivering the curriculum. I don't see any reason why we can't at least try the pilot, being very cognizant of the issues that have been raised.
Yeah, I mean, I do commend this program as an alternative education program. I think it's great. I just think I'm very concerned about the SPED issue. I really strongly believe, I'm very much about access, that access to the curriculum and the resources and how it's all delivered needs to be like fair and equal to everybody. And just to use my own personal example, I mean, I think SPED families face a lot of challenges. This will be one more challenge for them. And then for families like mine, we even have bigger challenges, because I spent 2 years fighting to get my kid out of district. I spent thousands of dollars fighting the system to get my kid out. You know, that's like, you know, I think there's some families with some really big challenges, and you've just made it that much harder for them. It's not, you're not going to make it easier. It just makes it tougher. I think, I just don't think it's fair to a large group of people, and I think access and fairness and equity is should be the utmost importance. And I feel like if everyone thinks June is such a waste of time, maybe we should really think about our culture, our educational culture in June, and what's it about, and what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. Maybe just we need to like remember. I mean, I don't remember getting to slack off when I was in school. Like, we all worked really hard. I mean, I don't know. I remember like not being happy, but I don't remember like just it. I remember I had expectations of me. So.
And we're not saying people are slacking off. We're saying that those teachable moments or the classroom environment is more conducive to learn during earlier parts of the year. Again, I respect everything that you said, and for me as a superintendent, if special education students are going to be disadvantaged in any way, I wouldn't support the program. So again, this is a pilot program. We've talked to districts that have done this, and we've been very pointed in our questions with them about special education students. And not one of them has said it's been a problem. So we're not talking about small districts. You know, we're talking about districts as large as ours. Some of them are much larger than ours. So their number of special education students would be far greater. So we're going on information that we've been able to get from those districts that have been successful.
So who in the school is tracking? So let's say a child gets pulled out 10 times a week for this, that, and the other thing. Who's actually tracking that it gets made up, that one day is made up and that second day is made up? Like, who's literally tracking all of those services to making sure they're made up? Like, whose job is that? Is it the teacher's job? I mean, my kid got services.
The other thing
right
I would
center.
say is just, there may be 338 students on IEPs in the district, but not all of them receive direct services. Some are just getting inclusion, support, accommodations
No, I
in the
agree.
classroom. So, I mean, the number's actually much smaller and more manageable to make up, rather than, when you say it's 338 students, it makes it sound like this huge number, when in reality, it's a much smaller number.
But there are students who get multiple services.
True.
Like, there are students who get everything.
But it's more manageable, is what I'm saying, than it sounds.
All right, well, we'll see. We'll find out. I'll fill out your survey.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heidi Murphy. I live at 7 Conant Street. I have a question as a parent. I'm trying to understand more because I've spoken to other parents who teach in other districts, and it's my understanding that in other places they get a blizzard bag when they have a snow day. So why is it we are saying you have to complete 3 days even if there are no snow days, regardless if there's any snow days? Suppose we just get 2 snow days. Now the kids have completed 178 days of school plus 3 days extra work, right? But they've only had 2 snow days. So are you saying that the workload now for the whole year is also including these 5 days or 3 days of work? Because what I'm having a problem understanding is, just let's say to make it easier, there are no snow days, okay?
Yeah, it's entirely possible that in the scenario you're painting, yes, if there are no snow days, a high school student will do 15 hours of work that doesn't count towards the replacement of a snow day.
9 hours, right? Because they're only making up 3.
Well, 3, right, sorry, I'm using 5 days if we did a full year
Right,
program.
'cause
So in
that's
this
the
case,
future, right?
They
The
would do
future is
9
right.
hours
Right.
of work. If there were 1 snow day, they'll have done 6 hours of work that they maybe otherwise wouldn't have required to do. We've looked at it, we've thought about it, and again, when we say days, it sounds so much more dramatic, because they're not doing 6 hours of work, they'd be in school for 6 hours. So, but yes, there is a possibility that they would end up doing a few hours of work that they wouldn't otherwise have to do.
Okay, so this is a pilot, and like I've listened and I heard them say.
Right. Sorry, one other comment I want to make. The reason that we did it that way, rather than saying, oh, well, we'll just hold them in reserve and only use them as necessary, was we had a lot of presentation about the authenticity of the delivery of the curriculum. If we do it the way we tried to do it in Littleton, the way we're trying to pilot it is, yes, we could just give them an extra, a 3rd grader, an extra sheet of multiplication to do. Okay, you did some work, and we get to tell DESE that we did this, and now we don't have to go to school in June. We don't think that's sufficient. We want the student to be, using a lot of different ideas and concepts that they've been getting in the classroom, and see how are they doing. Are they able to master the curriculum, deliver the work that we want, and we're going to evaluate it, and it gives us another opportunity to assess them and say, this student's doing great, this student we need to keep talking with about these particular things, and make sure that at the end of the year, we've done as good a job with them in terms of building them up as we can.
And it's my understanding from the presentation, too, that if no snow days are used, that teachers will have some flexibility to provide some in-class time or things as well to do.
That is where,
yeah.
that is what I'm not so sure, like, the kids are going, I'm going to use the scenario, it won't happen, I know, that there are no snow days, okay, because it's just easier. And the kids go to school for 180 days, okay? They've done 180 days of school for a kid who does, a high school kid, say like my son, who has his homework every day, and the high school kids are already, they have their plate full, right? They're going to school for the 180 days, and now you're giving them this extra work without actually having the snow day to say, okay, a kid thinks like this, I have a snow day, okay, I have to make up this extra work. You're saying to them, here are 5 days you have to make up. We don't care how many snow days you get. For a kid...
We do care. We ultimately care. We're not making this decision that 5 is the right number in a vacuum. We could have said 15.
But what I'm saying is...
We could have said 20. We said 5 because 5 is very common. It happens.
Yeah, I
averages
understand.
Out. So the idea that we would be giving them, that we're just cavalierly delivering them an extra workload is, it's not accurate.
But I think what they spent a lot of time doing is making sure that this was work that was part of the curriculum, that it was going to be part of the curriculum whether we have snow days or not. So if we have the snow days, then they do the work at home, and you know.
And I'm all for that. Yeah.
If they don't have the snow days, then we're in school days that we thought we might be at home. So there's extra in-school time to accomplish some of that work.
There's flexibility that...
Right?
Or to adjust other parts.
Right.
So you're saying basically, I'm just trying to think of it from a kid's standpoint, right? If you're saying, okay, my workload, my homework workload is going to be less, how is it you can program that in? Because you can't say that if there are actual snow days, because now there's extra work.
I think the point we're trying to make is, let's say, make up a scenario that in a particular class or over the course of the year, a student is going to do 250 hours of this type of work. So if we do it this way, they do the 250 hours and they don't have to go to the school the extra days. If there weren't as many snow days, then we are going to subtract in the classroom during the year some of that work. So they still only do 250 hours.
Well, yeah. So
they still only do 250 hours. That's how much they were going to do at the beginning of the year.
I think that has to be made very clear to parents.
You talked about
which is something, because that is not clear. And for me as a parent, it seems like my kid is going to get extra work without the guarantee that there is going to be.
Well, there are no guarantees.
I know, but what I'm saying is, it seems like you're saying the pilot says 3, with the future being 5 days of makeup work that you're going to have. But as a kid and a parent, we're saying, suppose you only get 2 snow days, they still have to make up that work.
I think the takeaway is, and I appreciate you raising the point, because now we can tailor the message. The number of hours of this type of work you're going to do is not going to change. It's fixed.
So that is important, right?
We appreciate that, and I hope that's a good takeaway for.
I appreciate all the work that you've done with the blizzard bags. I'm for the blizzard bags.
It's an important point, because it's a voice. It's something we've already heard, and I think I was through the comments from the school committee members too, because I remember taking some notes, because I think, you know, it's important to provide. Teachers will need to know that they have the allowance to provide time to students if, for example, there's a scenario where there's no snow days, right? Hard to imagine here, right?
It's hard to imagine.
Especially given the averages. But if that was a situation for us, you know, this is a huge concern for students and for lots of parents. Is perception is that, you know, work could be, you know, required of students even if there are no snow days or too much work beyond, work is not being assigned as the snow days occur. That, and so I think the allowance of providing time during the school day for students, the superintendents call it curricular adjustments, that teachers would be allowed to make to provide time for students to complete the work over a period of a month, not just days, but a whole month or even months. Will help offset that concern.
I think that's another point that has been made and maybe needs to be reinforced. By doing it this way, we give the families and students maximum flexibility. They can do this whenever they want. Some families might get right after it and say, I don't want to be worrying about this. I don't want to stare at that thing in the corner every time I come home to do my homework. I'm going to do it every Saturday in September, and when I'm done, I'm done. And that, I know I'm being optimistic and probably naive, but that, there are some families that might do it that way, and there are some families that are going to say, this is awesome, my student is highly motivated, she wants more of this. I wish there were more opportunities for her to do this kind of work because she really thrives on it and is actually bored in the classroom listening to, she prefers to do independent work. So I think there's a spectrum of the way this is going to be accepted and implemented household by household. I think Darryl used an analogy that even with 1,600 students, there's probably 3,000 ways it's going to get done. Like I say, I'm curious to see exactly how it plays out, and the feedback that we get will go a long way towards us determining did we understand reasonably well, or did we miss the mark by a mile, or even though we understood it reasonably well, can we make even better changes to make it more effective?
Or maybe we try to restructure where we do 2 days.
Well, my question was, is there a way, I mean, I know you have the curriculum set to what you want to accomplish, but why can't it be segregated daily? I didn't understand that aspect.
Well, I mean, this can be a real complex conversation. When you're teaching a subject area, you're not just teaching from day to day. You're developing foundation, knowledge foundations. So you're always bringing back the previous knowledge that the student has learned as the year progresses. And I'm trying to think of a way to dispel the belief that it's extra work. I mean, teachers adjust their curriculum all the time, and so if it's 3 days, they have to make adjustments, and people are concerned about assignments or quizzes. That's an easy fix. But being a teacher, you are pressed for time in your classes, and if you can gain an hour, even a week, to go into areas that to further spark student interest, I don't see that as a negative. I see that as an expectation that every parent would have of us. Because in the end, you expect us, and rightly so, to prepare your child or children to succeed after they leave Littleton High School. So we want to make sure they have those skill sets. So it's just a different way of framing this. There's certainly a lot of curriculum, and don't think teachers are thinking up things to do. That's not the reality of the situation. And I'm putting my parent hat on now, and because I'm familiar with the subject of biology a lot, that's one of my degrees. If my child had an opportunity to explore an area, say in human physiology, in greater detail that they otherwise would have because of what we're doing here, that's great. They're going to learn more, and if they decide to go into that field in university, they're going to be ahead of the curve. And so there's just so many ways to look at this, and maybe it's the easiest thing to say is it's not homework. Homework would not be acceptable, and the state would not approve our plan. It has to be way beyond homework. So
I understand that it's not homework, but it's still work. It's still added work for kids who already have a lot of work.
It's not added work.
Okay, that's the thing that has to be. That's the thing that we come back to that has to be made clear. Because if you're saying it's the curriculum that you're now taking a part of the curriculum and spreading it out, that's different. But the way it comes across is there are these 5 3 now in the pilot, but there are these 5 extra 3-hour work days that kids are going to be doing on top of what they're already doing, which they already have a lot of homework, and they have, especially high school students. I mean, the kindergartners and stuff, they have less, but high school students are already, you know, pressured to do X amount of work, and they already have a pretty heavy load. And so for a high school kid to say, I'm mandated to do these 3 extra days of 3 hours of work when I don't even know if I'm getting a snow day or I'm getting only 2 snow days, is a lot of pressure for a kid. Now, if the kid thinks that, if it's presented that this is work you would have had to have done anyway, it's different. And that did not come across. So that's what I was addressing.
And that's what we were trying to to come across with. But I'm glad you pointed it out. We obviously didn't succeed with you, and we need to continue to think of ways to communicate that. So.
All right, thank you.
And please remember that our average is 4.2 days a year. Now, there could be an anomaly. I mean, even if you're a weatherman, you're not going to get it right all the time. So, you know, we're hoping that with the 3 days, we're in pretty good shape.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joanne Derry. I'm from 211 Harwood Avenue, and I'm a homeowner here and the taxpayer, and I also happen to be a teacher at the middle school. And I didn't plan to really get up and say anything today. I was just going to pretty much listen. But there's a couple of points that I wanted to make. I'm glad that it's a pilot project, because that implies that it will be reviewed, evaluated, and probably refined before it's, and who knows, maybe it won't complete, it won't be done in subsequent years. As a teacher, most of the teachers that I talk to are sort of cautiously in favor of the idea of blizzard bags. And I think in part that's because our building is like more than 90 degrees after the end of May. So it will be a relief to have, you know, a fewer days there. But there was a slide where you talked about there was, you know, it's going to be a win-win-win, you know, no one's going to be hurt by this. And I just wanted to point out that the paraprofessionals who work with our, in our classrooms and the one-on-one aides, those people don't get paid when there's a snow day. So they only receive 180 days of pay if the 5 or however many snow days are made up as other days. So they actually would be losing out on some days of pay. Just
no, they're not. They're going to be paid.
Okay.
We figured that out already.
And then the other point that I wanted to make is I didn't expect this, but a lot of people in the room have talked about the decline in delivery of curriculum at the end of the school year. And I'm kind of offended. Please let me say my piece. I waited a long time. Thank you. In June, you know, I teach math in the 6th grade. We have to get through a big textbook. When June finally arrives, we're done with the standardized testing. It's a huge relief. The kids have come back from their week at camp, which was usually great. We've done our Country Expo project, which is really fun. And in those last few days of June, it's incredibly hot, but we do really cool projects in math, projects that kids and parents really like. And I was going to expand one of them. This year, I was going to take my career project where kids go online in the Chromebooks in class, and they research a career that they're interested in, and then they have to find where is the town that they're going to live in to do that career, what are the educational requirements for that career, how long will they have to go to school, what will that cost them. They have to find an apartment, determine what the rent will be, what will the car payment be, what will they spend on like several different utilities, and they have to plan to save a certain percentage of their income as, you know, to put away for retirement. So it's a really good project. They like doing it, and they make a big poster, and then they present it, and I get great feedback about it from parents. Well, this year, I was planning to expand it a little bit and have them learn about the power of compounding interest and how that affects a person who's borrowed money, like for something really important, and how it can also affect a person who's setting money aside, like front-loading a retirement account. But because of the snow day pilot, which I'm pretty much in favor of trying it, we probably won't be able to expand that project, and I might not get to do it at all. So I just kind of wanted to give a little perspective on that, and I don't know, that's my piece. Thank you for listening.
Nobody on the school committee has ever intimated or explicitly stated that we feel the staff coasts to the finish line. We have said that we realize, as you said twice, that it can be difficult to do as good work as you want to do because of the atmosphere in the building and the climate.
With
That's
all due
we've
respect,
said.
Mr.
That's all
Chairman,
we've said.
you were one of the people who said it, and there is at least 2 other people on this board, or in
We
this
did not
audience
say that
tables
we
who
thought
said
the staff was skating to the finish line, Joanne. You clearly
Excuse me,
misunderstood
I
us.
didn't say that.
That's exactly what you said.
No, I'll read what I said. And what I said were the words that came from your mouth. You referred to the delivery of curriculum at the end of the school year.
Just go through it, because you specifically said, you said that we think you guys don't work hard enough at the end of the year.
I didn't. And if I said that, I'm sorry. What
I
I
heard
said
that pretty
was I took exception to the several different people in the room who talked about the decline in the delivery of
The
curriculum.
decline in delivery.
and
We
in
never
school.
said there was decline in delivery by the staff.
No.
We've never intimated that.
These were the words
We
that I
said that
wrote.
it's difficult for you guys to do the work you want to do.
I don't want to argue about it. It's not why I came here.
Don't come up here and say that we said something that we think you guys aren't working hard. We've never
3
said
different
that.
people said that the
That's not what we
quality
said.
of curriculum delivery
We did
in
not say the
June
quality of
is
curriculum delivery. We said the
declined.
ability to deliver the curriculum well.
I wrote it down.
You didn't get it verbatim. Go back to the tape. We've never said that.
Maybe I will go back to the tape.
Joanne.
But thank you for listening.
Yeah.
I really appreciate
Just
it.
a couple of comments to you before you can sit down. As a teacher, when you plan your course, I would imagine that you're making sure that you plan your course for 180 days, and you're making sure you complete your course, like every teacher does. So if we have extra days that run beyond, even if you have a snow day, you're still trying to make up that time, because you're still not sure how much time you have to finish that course, which at times can be challenging for teachers. And the second point I would make to you is the project that you're talking about is a great project. That certainly could be incorporated into one of the projects during the snow day cancellation process.
So the stressful period that you refer to, Dr. Clenchey, happens up until May, when I have my standardized testing. In the period between September and May, the students have to be presented and hopefully absorb all the information that they're going to have to deal with on the standardized test. After May, everyone does heave a huge sigh of relief, because that is now done. And we get to go to the camp, and we have the country expo, and we finally get to do some fun projects in math.
And that's how we design the year.
And so that's one of the fun projects that we do. And I've really enjoyed it, and my students, I think, have enjoyed it in past years, and parents have given me awesome feedback about it. I hope that I'll still be able to fit it in. But the stressful period that you refer to, that's really pretty much done in May,
Right,
like
but
middle of May.
But my point is, if we have 5 snow days before May, it puts you under more pressure as a
It
teacher.
does. But I don't
It
get
puts our
those
kids
back
under more
by doing
pressure.
this Blizzard Bag program.
but you're
I never
covering-
get those days back. And I can't expect my
curriculum
students
despite.
to like produce that project or to learn about the power of compound interest on their own at home. It's something that we entirely do in class. They really don't have any work assigned outside of class for those projects.
Well, I'd like to see you keep that. I think it's a great
I
project.
hope I'll be able to. Thanks.
All right, is there any other public input on the Blizzard Bag alternative program? All right, thank you. All right, under new business, we have a resolution regarding the potential state funding reform.
Do we need a motion?
Oh, sorry, yes, you need a motion. We do, and it is conditional, I believe the wording says so, relative to impact bargaining with the LEA.
I just have one other thing. I think this is one of the slides from the program. It's got the same little logo. It says LPS rationale. Although we firmly believe that the highest form of learning takes place in a classroom with a qualified teacher, support staff, or specialist, we also acknowledge that days made up at the end of the school calendar are not of the same quality as those that could be offered with alternative structured learning day opportunities.
Because of the
Yeah,
environment.
not the quality of the teacher and the effort by the staff.
So, in terms of a motion, you would need a motion to approve the snow day cancellation pilot, but also put a phrase in there that says that we do need to sit down with our LEA and negotiate an MOA before we move forward with implementation, or at least have that meeting to discuss this with them. Something we need to do. It's the right thing to do.
Yep.
So, the amount of work that has gone into this is just, everyone involved should be praised, and the quality of the assignments, and I think it's great. And I really want to be able to say, let's give it a try. I still have concerns about the ability to fit all those special ed services in. I also have concerns about, especially with our youngest students, the impact it's going to have on families and how much we're requiring of families, particularly if it's, two working parents or, kid who lives, between parents or whatever the situation is. So while I'd really like to be able to say I'd like to give it a try, I'm wondering if we can do it so that, it's contingent on you coming back to us in a year with very specific, how did these special ed services?
I think we need to be careful, because what we vote on tonight is only for the pilot.
Okay.
For this year.
Yeah,
Right.
for this,
I thought
yes.
that's what I asked at the beginning. And
Yeah. Well, no, there's a review process. We're voting for the pilot. There's two parts here. Once we have approval to do the program, we don't have to go to DESE again. But we're only asking approval for the pilot. So if we can decide to continue this and do a full program, we don't have to go back to DESE.
But we can
That's
definitely
different.
understand
That's
amongst
different.
ourselves that we'll
Yeah.
take a second vote on that.
So similar to what we did for
Yes.
the
We can, yeah.
physical
We
ed
would.
piece there, we approved it only for the 1 year, with them coming back for requesting to have it extended.
Yeah.
And that would be the same process that we approved.
That was absolutely my understanding, is that all we're doing is making,
For the school year.
all we're debating tonight is potentially entertaining a motion to support the pilot program for this calendar, school year, would be, in that, was implied, but let's make it explicit, that it doesn't have to be in the motion, but explicitly understood by all of us and everybody listening and watching, that we will revisit and revote if we want to move this forward in the next.
We'll have to vote,
Yes.
because the motion will only be.
Correct.
for
That's,
approval.
I get that, but I just want to make sure everybody else understands that.
Make your
So-
motion to
And
that.
can we get specific special ed
We can ask for-
data
right, the
saying,
feedback.
this is how these hours
Yes.
were fulfilled?
Yep, you can ask for the feedback any way we want it, and if we don't get it in a manner that we're not comfortable with, that can be the reason why we decide not to move forward. For sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll make a motion to approve the alternate structured learning program for school year 18-19, contingent upon, well, it doesn't need to be contingent upon, subject to the finalization of negotiations with appropriate bargaining units.
Seconded.
All right, motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One opposed. All right, thank you. All right, now on to new business. Resolution for a potential state funding reform. Erica.
Well, so we all know that our hands are usually tied by the budget, and that for years the state funding has been pretty much level. There's been a real push to get the state funding to follow the Foundation Budget Review Commission's recommendations. And what we have here is mostly wording from a resolution that 92 other districts have signed on to. It's also includes information specific to Littleton, which if the recommendations were fully funded would we'd be getting an additional $405,500 in state funding.
All right, any questions or comments on the potential resolution?
Can I have?
Well, I think we'll have our discussion first, and then we'll definitely invite the LEA to wanted to put some comments on it as well.
Yeah, no, I read it. All we can do is try to get the state to actually respond to all of the requests that have been made to address the funding pieces here.
Any questions, comments? I mean, the only thing I would have to say is that at the timing of this is we actually started, Bill Miskinnis reached out to us and talking about potentially doing something like this, and then Erica started researching it, and subsequent to that, it's been on the Boston Globe twice in the last 2 days, similar, not directly related to this, but the same concept, that the foundation budget is broken, that it needs to be evaluated. And
not a new discovery.
Fixed. No, it's not, but there seems to be at the State House level more impetus. There was a little bit of a start last year and it petered out. It seems like it might have, I don't know if it has enough momentum, but it's got more momentum than it has. The only thing I would say is that the specific figure that Eric is addressing is from one model, which is a redistribution of basically existing funding. So somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. And at the State House, what they're potentially talking about is increasing the pie. Erica alluded to the fact that we've been level funded on Chapter 70 and local aid in general for several years now. What they're talking about is not level funding, it is getting an influx. What they haven't talked about is where that money is going to come from, whether it's a combination of raising taxes or fees or redirecting existing allocations to other budget priorities at the State House back towards public education. So there's a long way to go, and I think, Daryl, you're right. The point is it's worth a try. What I would like to do is, if we entertain the motion and get it passed, what we would do then is I would write a letter to each of our state senator and our state rep saying that we did this and we expect this to be acknowledged, and hopefully they'll jump onto the bandwagon down in Boston to see if we can get some resolution and some benefit from it. Before we entertain the motion, we did offer a spot for the LEA because I know that the various bargaining units and union bodies in the state are also participating in a PR push and lobbying push to get this on the forefront.
Thank you. So my name is Bill Miskinnis. I'm a teacher at the high school, and I want to say thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity, or allowing me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the LEA in favor of this resolution to ultimately fix what has been really a system in need of fixing for quite some time. I think, I hope you forgive me, I'm a history teacher, so instead of focusing on the present day at first, I was going to take us back to 1780. John Adams wrote in our state constitution something which has always stuck with me ever since college as being really unique to Massachusetts. In our state constitution it reads, it shall be the duty of the legislatures and magistrates in all future periods of this Commonwealth to cherish the interests of literature and the sciences and all the seminaries of them, especially the University of Cambridge, public schools, and grammar schools in the towns. It's a pretty forceful statement about the foundational role that public education plays in our state and in our democracy. And unfortunately, and again, as was noted before, this is not like a news flash, but unfortunately, the funding formula as it now stands isn't not holding ourselves to the high standard that was set by the originators of the Constitution of our state. And the hard truth that we face, and that I think everyone who has a stake in education really knows, is that we have lofty and urgent aspirations that are not met with the required resources. I mean, ultimately what we have is a structural problem, and a structural problem requires a structural solution. I can say with confidence, I think everyone in this room would agree with me, that teachers, support staff, administrators in this district approach their jobs with a problem-solving mindset. They go to work and try to use what they have in order to better the interests of our students. But at a certain point, having more special education teachers helps students with special needs have better outcomes. Having more mental health counselors makes it so that there's a greater safety net to catch people so they can bring them back up. More elementary school teachers makes it so that relationships are built when they're most important. So while we all know this to be true, we know our schools need the additions, the reliance on regressive property taxes makes these priorities more and more untenable and out of reach. I think, and actually to speak to your point, I think that it's very reasonable, and it's a question we should ask, where is the money going to come from? It's true, there's no such thing as a free lunch, as we know from an economics class. I think it's incumbent on us as education stakeholders to ultimately advocate to our state legislatures to first of all recognize this as a problem, and then in doing so, while devising a solution, also devise a solution to the funding. But I think the ball has to be rolled first by us. So in sum, I urge the passage of this new resolution as a means of expressing to everyone, but most especially to our students, that we still truly cherish education in Littleton and in Massachusetts as a whole. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. You used the phrase problem-solving mindset. I agree with you. I think the staff, that's exactly what they do. I think we do in Littleton an outstanding job of dealing with the constraints that you guys face on a day. We face it in a budget cycle sense. You guys face it literally every day, and you guys do yeoman's work in making it work. But it would be great if we had enough money and resources where you get into a visionary mindset and we could do, we know what we're capable of, and if we had the opportunity to, and I'm not going to call it the luxury, the opportunity to really get after it, you know. So we acknowledge that you guys really make do with not enough, and we wouldn't survive as a district without you guys in the trenches every day with that problem-solving mindset. Hopefully we can bring enough pressure to bear all of us that maybe we can get out of that a little bit, a little less focus on problem solving, a little more focus on, you know, what can we really do given the opportunity that we all deserve, and we think, we all recognize it. I don't think anybody, that's not true. Some people think we do spend too much, but the vast majority of people, like, they just want to have it happen, but the resources are the constraint. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. At this point, unless there's any other discussion, I would entertain the motion.
Make a motion to accept the resolution calling for the full funding of the Foundation Budget Review Commission's recommendations.
I'll second that.
All right, second. Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. One more opportunity for interested citizens. Putting your coat on. Okay, that's a no. Subcommittee reports. PMBC.
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Budget Subcommittee, we had in this room last Saturday, the Budget Summit, where all the department heads came in front of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee to offer up their initial budget requests, both the way they phrase it, the level budget, or level service budget, and the mission budget. I came to represent the school committee. I presented the same information that we presented a couple weeks ago in terms of what our asks are and what we need to be able to maintain a level service and level staffing budget, along with any potential priorities for any potential additional staffing and resources. I did flesh it out in turn after the discussion that we had in terms of, identifying that we have a big increase in the SPED out of district tuition, and we do feel strongly that we need to be able to support the phase-in of tuition-free full-day kindergarten, which has not been supported as of yet by the appropriated budget. And the point I really tried to drive home was that when we talk about the potential additional resources and staffing, that we need to get those two things taken care of in the budget first, and then if there's still an opportunity at that point, we would have a more robust and detailed discussion about exactly what our priorities are for additional resources. Nobody, at that meeting, and we've done this for several years now, it's not a forum where people say no, yes, or you're crazy, or we can't do that, or why don't you do this instead, or what is your priority for that. It's very much a information delivery, and then we go out and we start to debate it, fit it into the models, and then we circle back towards it to think about where do we need to make adjustments and what we can or can't do in a given budget cycle. So a lot will go forward or happen as we go forward, but that part of the process is done at delivery of the initial budget request. So, all right. Any other questions or anything?
Just a comment on that. In the past, I've seen selectmen packets that have school budget estimates that are not reflective of the numbers that we've been providing. Is there a means that we can ensure that we transmit to the town what our optimistic budget need is, so that it's not perceived as in January we're asking for an additional? I'm very concerned about the optics of how that is gone every year.
My only hesitation is on, can I insure it? No, I cannot insure it because it is not our documentation.
Can we make a transmission?
Yes, we will. We will.
More formally states.
And I haven't done that because I've been busy with a couple other things. But you're right. That's the next step for us, is to make sure that they understand the number we put in there for our level service and level staffing budget is the number we expect to see reflected in all models moving forward, until we decide through the process with the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen that that number is going to move one way or the other as necessary, along with other numbers in the budget, whether they're revenue numbers or expense numbers for other departments. So yes, very good point, and I will make sure that that happens. All right. Okay, that's it for that one. Policy Subcommittee?
Nothing.
Okay.
We're ready
Well,
to
yeah.
bring two policies
Yeah.
next meeting for first reading.
Nothing now. Just wait. Kids took naps, Gunner's at school. I spent like many hours today, so I don't know, it was like 20.
I do know it's late, but I would like to have a very brief executive session just so we can talk about the impact bargaining, MOA discussion that we have to have with the LEA. So as we make a motion to adjourn, we just need to do it in such a manner that we can go into executive session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn into executive session with no intent to return to open session for the purposes of discussing issues associated with impact bargaining.
Okay, motion made and seconded. It's a roll call vote. Zero.
Aye.
Aye. Jen?
Aye.
I say aye as well. Thank you, everyone.
Say aye, aye.
Aye.
No.